Just want to call to order June 8th, 2022, Victorian Village hearing. Our next business meeting will be June 29th, 2022, 12 p.m. noon at 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204, which is this room. Our next hearing date will be Wednesday, July 13th, 2022 at 4 p.m. At 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204, which is this room. Swearing staff.
Kimberly Bernard Sheehy, Assistant Historic Preservation Officer.
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Introduction of commissioners present. So I'm going to start on my left.
Robert Dodson,
Sean Conyers.
Tim Skinner, Reed Sprite,
Melinda Shaw.
Jeffrey Hansen.
So do you want to offer any thoughts on the hearing format or any of the City of Columbus policies?
Not at this time. I think the applicants are familiar with it, and if not, we'll guide them through. Go.
Perfect. All right. Do we have a public forum?
No, not today.
So approval of the staff approvals. So do you want to kind of go through that list?
Yes. So
First?
I'll go through and see if we have any abstentions.
Okay.
So I'll read these off. 178 Buttles Avenue. These start on page 9 if anybody wants to follow along. 1001 Delaware Avenue. 87 West 2nd Avenue. 231 Buttles Avenue. 305 Tappan Street. 984 to 986 and a half Hunter Avenue. 11 to 27 West Star Avenue. 44 West Russell Street. 751 North High Street. 386 Buttles Avenue. 325 West Hubbard Avenue. 1127 Neal Avenue. 326 Wilbur Avenue. 751 North High Street. And those are all the staff approvals.
No abstentions. So can there be a motion to approve those to the director?
Motion to approve staff approvals.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. So let's move on to May meeting minutes from last month. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes for May?
Motion to approve the May meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the meeting minutes? All right, cast a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
So we are starting with agenda item number 4. The first 3 are to staff approval. Do we have the applicant or owner for 1156 Neal Avenue? Come right on up. I'll start reading the staff report. So this application is to remove a mature tree at the southwest corner of a lot and replace it with a conserved tree, remove the existing stoop, walk, steps, and retaining wall, and install a new masonry stoop with handrails, stone paver walk, masonry stair set, veneered retaining wall, and wrought iron fence, as well as the new retaining wall would span approximately 33 feet 1 inch along near Mill Avenue. It would be 3 feet 6 inches high with a stone veneer and limestone cap, and there would be a wrought iron fence sitting on top of it at 3 feet. Staff has included the comments from the May 11th hearing. Commissioners at the business meeting did request an arborist report, and the applicant had previously explained that the existing tree has limited space for its roots due to being so close to a retaining wall. The applicant has agreed to plant a similar tree in the vicinity, but further back so as not to cause any issues between the roots and the retaining wall. At the previous business meeting, commissioners had requested a contextual view of the full wall and neighboring walls. As in Google Street View, the retaining wall fence is not the prevailing condition along the street. current tree is 30 inches in diameter, and the proposed replacement would be a 2.5 to 3 inch tree. And the applicant has clarified that the existing wall does not have any major structural issues. The replacement, this is to improve the appearance, quality, and longevity of the wall, and replacement with a masonry wall also allow for the mounting of the proposed fence and to improve the drainage. So any downspouts will now go to the street and not down onto the sidewalk. Staff recommends approval of the application with the condition that the current retaining wall height be retained and as well as the tree. Basis for staff recommendation are City Code 3116/4013, standards for site improvement, specifically A and B, Victorian Village guidelines on fences and yards, stating what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And Sean, I'll hand it back to you so we can swear to the applicant.
Thank you. Do you state your name, get you sworn in, sir?
Adam May?
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. You want to add anything to Kimberly's presentation?
No, I think that sums it up pretty well.
Guess let's kick back over to just the commission for comments. So just kind of thinking, I know there's probably a couple of items here. So we have the wall condition, we have the tree, and then we have the improvements on the porch. Just kind of thinking about those. And I'm gonna say improvements on the porch as well as the walk, the horizontal surface, and kind of bucket all of those together. So any comments on maybe the improvements related to the porch and that materiality?
Stoop, steps, and walk, I think, are all appropriate.
Yeah, I didn't see anything that was really out of line per se, considering the conditions.
Yeah, agree. Okay. Just gonna move on to maybe the next one is just kind of maybe talk a little bit about maybe the height of the wall alongside of the tree. So I think staff's recommendation is maintain the current height. And it seems as though, if I remember that hearing that correctly, is maintain the existing 30-inch tree. Is that okay? I just want to make sure.
And I would support that. I think the height of the wall, if you're talking about just a wall or just a fence, it's, relative to the adjacent sidewalk in terms of that barrier. And as soon as you start stacking those on top of each other, you really need to start thinking about that height from the sidewalk up to the top of that fence. It does start to become pretty imposing. So I think that's a challenge and not really meeting the intent of the guidelines to do that. And then I also do challenge, the hackberry trees are those large trees that you are throughout this neighborhood that are really nice, can be really nice trees. I understand the concerns about the constraints of, its proximity to the wall, but the fact that it doesn't appear to be necessarily damaging the wall as it is. And that's why I think an arborist report that if we do come back with some justification, the tree is.
That was
It's
added.
included.
That was included. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's okay, I didn't state anything.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't see that either.
I think it's one of the last items.
I see.
It's the last page.
Yeah, it's last page.
Yeah, just to clarify too, I think we're compared to the existing wall height for what it's worth, I think it's only a 6-inch change. I completely understand what you're saying, adding the fence in and how that can be more imposing, but it would only be a 6-inch increase over the current height too.
Over the total height.
Mm-hmm. Because it steps up a little bit going up the sidewalk, so the yard currently slopes down to it, so the idea was to level that out a little bit there, and so that's why we chose to just do that 6-inch increase.
With that 6-inch increase, could you give a little bit of additional insight on how it marries up to the neighbors' adjacent walls?
Yeah, so aside from a plan with our proposal for the client, we would plan to take those they would all still stay at 6 inches below. If it made a difference to step those up over there, then I'd certainly be, open to any ideas to make this work. But we would plan, since the former owner owned the next door property as well, so it's one continuous wall, and then the one on the north side runs into it as well. So we would plan to return those back into the hill, the neighboring walls. So as we were to construct the new walls and remove this one, we would plan to return those in for stability, the adjacent properties, so that they wouldn't be compromised in the future as well.
Is that 6 inch height lower of the same height of the adjacent properties or higher?
It would be 6 inches higher than the adjacent properties, right?
Thank you.
So can we get back to the tree
Yes, sir.
for a second? It really does not look like it's affected anything. And also, tree canopy is really important to the streetscape. It's almost as important as architectural elements, especially on Neil Avenue, considering we're losing trees left and right. So I'm kind of strong.
And reading through this report,
It's his professional.
and it's that opinion is based on, I think, maybe trying to project what may happen in the future, the unbalanced nature of the current branching. I'm interpreting that maybe they're suggesting that it could cause some problems with a limb snapping, and it's hard to go off of this. It doesn't suggest anything about the tree being diseased or damaged in its current state. It's just saying it doesn't have any more room to grow, which, if it's at full height, that's fine. So I think I do also challenge the.
Kind of needs some tender loving care. That's what.
Yeah. And it is, it is so tough because, you just can't replicate, even with a large tree, the impact that has on not only this property, but the streetscape.
Sure. I completely understand that. I just, don't take removal of any mature trees lightly either. So I completely understand that, being on Neil Avenue as well. Can respect that. The only thing I guess I would call it, to take a look at, just with the pictures on there, when you're looking at the northern view of it, that was the biggest concern, was with that north view, just how unbalanced they were. Was the biggest concern that he had. But when I met with the arborist, kind of went over that. I know it was in there.
Well, and so is the unbalanced nature of it an aesthetic
No,
thing, or is it concern that it's going to cause some, potentially be a hazard?
right. I mean, that was the biggest concern. It's not these ones.
Maybe it won't.
One coming up soon, I'm sure. So that one was, and I can understand why they did that, to keep it away from the house and direct its growth, but toward the street and away from the house. It was just, it seems like it was done in a way that weights it so heavily over there, that was his biggest concern, was, hey, this is completely weighted. Even you can scroll up and kind of see going up the branches, and just being so heavily weighted on that street side. That was the biggest concern that we had.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but if the tree is a really kind of important piece to, if any work happens, I mean, I would imagine that you're trying to get in there and replace a wall, if that tree is still in the way, it's going to be pretty problematic. So
For the construction of the wall itself, well, there would be excavation for the footers. There is a gas location there that we would hydro back and, excavate nicely as we could. But yeah, to do the footer would require some additional excavation along the sidewalk there. How much of that is really going to impact the tree itself is a little hard to say until we kind of get in there and see what is actually in that area, but it certainly is a concern. And I think that the masonry wall would make a lot of sense for a lot of other reasons with this project. But getting in and doing the excavation and even just future, I guess, work along those steps that are pretty close up to it, any future work with the wall in general. It's just so close to the sidewalk there, that, as we were kind of just talking about it and looking at it, just seemed like it would be the decision we prefer from that basis, at least from a construction and a longevity of the tree, and just making that kind of investment, I guess, into the property, knowing that potentially you could have that tree work in the future, with the current issues, kind of something to consider, I guess.
I mean, trees are beautiful. People pay a lot of money for mature trees, and it costs a lot of money to take care of trees. I have hornbeams in my little backyard, and they have to be trimmed twice a year. It's
For
a couple
sure.
$1,000s, and it's nice to say, no, I don't want these. And you have to watch out what they do to your neighbors. You have to be cognizant. I just hate the idea of losing a mature tree on Neal Avenue when it doesn't really need to be lost. And it might cost these people some money to get it back into shape or even get it back balanced. But I think it's worth it.
Would it be something, I know we proposed a 2.5 to 3 inch tree. Would you be open to a larger caliber tree if we were able to get something approved on 5 or 6 inch caliber that would be a more, of course, you can't buy them quite that big, but something that might provide more of that canopy and that look you're looking for sooner?
I think that would definitely help if you were to get the, 5 or 6 inch caliper, but you're still looking at a tree considerably smaller than this one. For me, it comes down to, is this tree, is it a hazard? So, is that unbalanced nature of it really causing an immediate hazard? In which case, removal of that tree, getting out ahead of it does make some sense in terms of making sure we're not, it's not falling on somebody else's property or onto a car parked there. So I think that's the kind of the key for me, that what I'm seeing right now, the justification maybe doesn't quite line up just yet.
You scroll up just a little bit further. Just up the tree picture we were just at, just a little further. You can kind of see how unweighted it gets, getting toward those upper areas as well.
Can you bring up the Google Street View?
I was just gonna ask if that would,
Because that's a whole different picture of it,
there's the,
the greenway.
yeah, the. Thank you, Mark.
So just the extent of those branches and how far out they are, with basically no balance on that eastern side.
I would think almost all those mature trees are like that, because who would want branches growing towards their house?
Yeah, and I
It's
do,
like a healthy tree to me.
and I agree with that. The immediate health of the tree seems to be okay. I think it's something that absolutely should be monitored closely. But I just don't know if I have enough justification yet to say that, yeah, that tree should go. I mean, I understand the concern. I appreciate the concern and the effort to make improvements, but I think we need to see some evidence of that tree actually starting to lean or cause some real concerns in terms of that imbalance.
Sure. Okay.
Anyone else? Melinda, Rita, Rob, just want to make sure. So it seems like the tree is the concern, keeping the tree. We talked about the height of the wall. I think there's a constructability concern that's related to the new walls. The type of wall that would be replacing. So, the current wall, it seems like the tree and the current wall kind of go hand in hand, just from the constructability of the proposed new wall. So is there anything that you can think of that, because obviously the wall that you're proposing is, full wall with a cladding, on it, so it won't have that same sense of flexibility. We need a deeper foundation. There's excavation. So now all of a sudden the tree is now in question. So is there any alteration to that? Or do you agree that those two kind of go hand in hand?
As far as the tree health itself, it's something that, yeah, they do go together to a certain extent. I mean, we're not, excavated into tree root systems and certain percentages before, which is relatively minor to what we're doing. You know, as far as actually severing the root system and things like that. But the wall itself, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, more crucial to the rest of the project, and it just being right up next to that tree. Yeah, I guess they do kind of go together in that sense. Originally, we had thought about just adding on a little bit of layer to the wall itself, but it really makes it difficult with the mounting of the fence, having to either extend those legs down so far below grade to where they're, you know, exposed to more elements, more moisture, or bringing those footers, you know, clear 3 feet above grade. The cost started to not balance out quite as well to make that fence happen. Which was definitely one of their primary desires, was to get that fence in there. And from a construction standpoint, it kind of led from there.
But is there, I think there's some concern too in terms of the height and that sense of presence of the wall plus the fence. So,
Yeah.
to help and to talk to your point, is there a proposal to be able to take this fence and bring the fence and step the fence back? And so you don't have some of the concerns that you're mentioning. Potentially, and the wall does what the wall needs, maybe introduction of the fence, or maybe there's no fence. Is that an option that the owner would kind of consider?
I do all of my drawings and plans, based on what their desires are, and to try to reflect that as best I can. So, it is something that they are very happy with and would like to see. They plan to spend a lot of time at this property, and that curb appeal is really important to them. Getting that nice look, getting as much of their yard space, keeping that as much accessible as possible. As far as the mounts of the fence, moving it back, that does encroach on the property in such a small lot. I think every foot and 6 inches does matter. With these projects, it does limit the planting plans and schemes and things like that, what we'd be able to have up front. That being said, I'm certainly open to whatever, we can do to make this happen.
Is it more beneficial? I guess maybe you're hearing the comments. I think the comments are just concerns are the tree is a concern. The wall, because the tree and the wall kind of go hand in hand. The nature of the fence is going to have to change, or at least be relooked at with an alternate proposal. The improvements of the porch seem like there's no concerns there in the sidewalk. Do you feel as though that this needs to be continued to go back, or just your thoughts on that, or just to try to help us move forward with some type of
Does what need to be continued now?
the application? To be able to revise the application to address some of the comments that you heard today, and be able to allow the client to, be able to weigh in on those revisions.
Yeah, I guess I could see what they're open to as far as that. So basically just being okay with the stoop and the stair set, but not the wall, the fence, or the tree.
That could be an option, meaning if the commission felt like it was comfortable to be able to say, can we approve those improvements for the porch and the hardscape, meaning just the sidewalk itself?
If you would want them broken apart, we could.
What was that now?
The porch entrance, and then break off the fence, tree, and wall.
So basically revise and then come back with a revised proposal for those elements, basically to address the concerns. Okay, so not being denied, just kind of push.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly open to look into it, and maybe even get some more information to help my case, or look at other options and come back. That's fine. Yeah.
Do you want that motion to be broken, meaning that do you need the improvements for the porch now, or do you want to keep the whole project integrity altogether?
As long as it doesn't cause me any issues, I'm fine to break them up and
Okay.
go ahead with
Awesome.
that. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to say one more thing. I think we don't often look at it, but just as you buy a house with a slate roof, it really does add. We really do try to protect it and keep it. I think we need to start thinking about landscape issues in the same way, unless, it's not possible.
Yeah, I mean, especially a stone wall that has some
Yeah.
historic, certainly some historic value. Yeah.
As far as like the construction and the material of the wall itself, or?
Yeah, the material, the age of it, but there is some actual historic value to
So
it.
I'll take a look at the file when this comes back to see when that retaining wall.
Okay.
came in.
That'd be great.
If you look at one of the first photos we have a 1909 photo that
It's up
shows
there.
this the gentle slope, and that retaining wall has gradually gone up over time, as has the land has changed too.
Makes sense. So can there be a motion for item A, which would be the improvements associated with the front stoop, as well as the sidewalk or the horizontal, hardscape sidewalk leading up to that stoop?
Motion for VV 22 04 007, 1156 Neal Avenue, to separate out as item 1A, approval of the front stoop, front walk, and steps as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. I get a motion for the balance of the application, including the fence, the wall, and the discussion about the tree to be continued.
Motion for VV 22 04 007, 1156 Neal Avenue, item 1B, the remainder of the application, including the wall, fence, and existing tree removal to be continued.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I was looking just to make this, I know.
I thought I saw one of these.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff.
We will move on to application number 5, which is 135 West 2nd Avenue. This application is for new construction to construct an addition to the east and west elevations of the original house. This includes a covered side porch to reflect the design of the existing front porch, remove wrought iron detailing on the existing front porch, and add wood columns. The new siding will reflect that of the surrounding buildings with solid wood pattern, replacing the existing shingles with a shingle from the approved list, replacing windows with the Pella Architectural Series 2/2, replacing the entry doors with wood doors in the style submitted, and replacing the gutters with the Ochi, installing patio pavers with the Mission tumbled clay brown patio pavers, and removing a 4-foot chain link fence. And one variance, the 3333.23, reducing the side yard from the required 5 foot to 1.4 feet along that eastern property line. Staff has included the commissioner comments from the May 2022 hearing. The updated documentation for the existing windows shows that they are deteriorating past the point of repair, and HPO staff does support the replacement of those windows. Based on the photos of the original siding, it does appear that it is in good condition for staff assessment. The siding of the original house should be repaired and restored with a contrasting pattern on the addition. The overall height of the addition does need to be lower than that of the house, while other projects may have been approved with higher heights taller than that of the original structures. The Victorian Village Commission does not need to approve that here, as each property is individually viewed. And for the Secretariat Interior Standards, new additions should result in the least possible loss of character, defining features, and historic materials. The new additions should be compatible with the historic building, and the addition should be subordinate and secondary to the original structure, compatible in massive scale materials, relationship to solids, folds, and colors, and the addition should be distinguished from the original building by setting it back from the wall plane of the historic building. Staff recommends approval of the application with the conditions that the addition is lower than the original portion of the building. The siding material differs in pattern from that of the original house, and that the original siding is retained, refitted, and repaired as needed. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.11, the standards for alteration, as well as City Code 3116.12, the standards for construction. John,
Thank
hand
you.
it back to you.
Appreciate it. Can you state your name? Get you sworn in, sir?
Stephen Wink,
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. All right, could you walk us through the changes or any additional information on the application?
Well, the only, I guess, concern I have with the conditions is the siding. Just, it's hard to like show them in the pictures just because there's no electricity in the house. It's dark. The pictures don't show up very well. But I mean, there's only 2.5 walls of the house that have the siding pictured, and the rest of it's been patched with plywood and miscellaneous pine boards. So I don't, I guess, design-wise and aesthetically, I don't see a way to patch it and make it look original or even close to original, just because it's been so poorly, it's had so much stuff nailed on top of it, there's so many holes everywhere. Just the cost of having to have that all patched and repaired would outweigh the cost of having the whole house resided to match.
That's the one, these people didn't really take care of this house, even though it kind of looks like it was taken care of, but I don't think it was taken care of very well.
It's challenging.
No, I mean, and there's some, in some of the photos, I can't remember, I don't recall if it's in the most recent photos I sent over, but there are photos of it being patched with like HVAC metal ducts, and there's a patch right there on the roof, on the soffit. So, I mean, there's just not very much of the original material left. I would say the sample photo that we provided is the absolute best section of the house, and even that was very deteriorated.
Kimberly, I'm just thinking about it. Is there a kind of is there an ability of a kind of a step process? Right now, obviously that is a concern, is deciding. Is there a step of being able to offer them a sense of approval with the conditions that during, demolition or during the removal of the balance of the siding, if there's an assessment done at that moment
You could always do a subcommittee review for additional photographs of the siding.
after the siding is removed, to what extent? Right. Okay. It's just trying to
Yeah.
understand.
Well, I mean, I have to say, this, this applicant has really worked with this.
Completely.
It's come a long way,
Agreed.
and I'm
Agreed.
kind of very proud of it, the way it is now. So we should figure out what that process is and move along, because they
I-
worked with us a lot.
I will also say I am, I don't want to say shocked, but surprised, I guess. At the business meeting feedback, the feedback was there was no comments at all on
That was from the commission.
any changes. So I guess I'm kind of confused about the addition height needing to change, because that wasn't discussed as far as I know.
Yeah, I think that just Kimberly, that's okay. I think that the concern is right now is that the staff has, that was her staff report, and the staff report provided that information. So what you heard at the business meeting was more so the commission's observations of what was going to be on the agenda.
Okay,
And the thought of, is there additional information that's needed to support today's conversation? So that was really the main, yep. And a lot of times we offer kind of some dialogue or feedback to see if we do need some additional information, if there's outside concerns. So with the hope of being able to move an application forward. So that was, yeah, because I don't think every commissioner was present too as well, from that time. Siding wise, obviously, we do agree. I think that this application has come a long way. We want to see this application move forward. Being sensitive to if there's an opportunity, I think that was what I was just trying to get across on the siding. It's really difficult to take it all off and then be able to have the right assessment. So if there's a way to be able just to document it, to just be able to help, I think that was what I was trying to get to. Can we just talk about the massing a little bit? I know Kim had pointed out a concern slightly as it relates to the addition being slightly higher than the existing massing of the home.
So it's not really higher though. At the roof, because the building gets wider, the roof line comes up a little bit more, but short of changing the pitch of the roof, which then isn't going to look right with the rest of it, the roof line is going to get higher because the house itself is wider. And for that reason, it doesn't bother me.
That's interesting.
And also, I agree, and also that corner's becoming kind of handsome to what it was in our original planning. Does that height really overtake the three new builds? Well, the two new builds in the old house that has an addition on it? We know what those heights are? Kimberly? That would be nice to know because, I mean, the pitch, obviously it should be no higher than the pitch of that last addition on that house.
So I don't know the exact height off the top of my head. But I do know that the pitch, the roof that we're proposing for the addition, along with the original house, is lower than the tan house that you see in the picture on the screen right now.
Yeah, if that's the case, I'm
It
fine
is
with
lower
it
than that.
because you have sort of a cadence for those three.
Any additional?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Now we just have to work on that apartment building.
Anything else? I'm just, how do we get this siding piece into the mix? I would like to get that siding piece in the mix as a milestone.
I think my comment about the siding is, especially because you're not gonna know until you get it all
That's
off,
correct.
is that it either needs to be restored or it needs to be replaced in kind. So pattern and material to match, like the profile of it, because looking at the one close-up picture, it looks like it has a slight bead detail to it, which you can replicate. Bead detail.
It's just standard 5-inch lap siding. And then that stuff on the outside is a mixture of cedar shingle and fiberboard siding or cement board, whatever you want to call it, oral.
Yeah, the
Maybe
front
it's-
is the front
And then
is
the-
that cement just in the back. is
And then on the front of the house, underneath all those 3 layers of shingles is the original, which is different than the 2 sides of the house and the back of the house.
So page 15.
It's just a hodgepodge of siding, I think, that was patched and repaired over the years. Yeah, so that is a different siding than the 5-inch lap siding that's on what I would call the majority of the house.
Okay. Where's this one?
That's on the front of the house. That's covered up in layers of cement board, fiberboard siding, whatever you want.
You may want to have that tested before you take it off. By the way.
I didn't.
I'm not saying you did, but whoever is going to remove it, that style of
Trouble.
shingle is often asbestos shingles.
I mean, I think in the end,
Not
we want
always.
we want a comprehensive project. I mean, I think that's what we
Yeah.
want, right? So, but I mean, I could see that kind of like in kind on the main addition, and then once they get the demolition done, if the conditions are so bad, once you get the siding taken off, then that would give them the opportunity to come back for being able to, I guess, choose a siding to finish up the existing portion of the home. I don't want to hold them up, but it seems like we should be sensitive to extents.
I mean, I think my question would be, so we know there's different types of sidings. If for a perfect world and all that siding was in good shape, would that be what we want, right? That it has this matching siding? And if the answer to that is, yeah, that's fine, then I'd say what you're going, fine, replace it with whatever was there originally. If it's the lap siding versus the kind of the beadboard here or whatever it is, then we can do that. Or we say that no, it all needs to match, and in which case we just got to pick one, right? I think that seems like it makes the most sense.
So I guess the concern coming from our client's perspective, the concern that they have with the siding is that trying to repair the damaged pieces and then having a new addition with all clean, like no holes in it siding, no dents or chips or anything. I think they're just concerned about, even with fresh coats of paint, that it's just going to be very noticeable that that's not the same caliber of construction anymore than the new stuff would be. And I think it, like visually, it would just not look very good. So that's kind of where we're coming from design wise with the client.
Well, but you know what? Sometimes those imperfections say this was the original house and this is the new house, and they can stand side by side and read well. It's how you do the work.
All right, so are those the only questions that we have? it seemed like we've addressed the siding as well as the massing. Seems like there's limited concerns on the massing, just given the limited pitch. The siding, I'm open to a motion that at least addresses the siding. I think there should be some.
And I don't know what that would be, just because I'm 50-50, you know, this isn't a great example
I know.
of something that we need to mark as historic, but at the same time, it does have merit.
That's correct.
And how much merit do you put towards kind of what's going on there?
So another option with the siding, if you wanted to put it into a motion, would be to approve it as repaired with a note that if it cannot be repaired, the applicant is to work with staff as like a staff approval moving forward. So they'd work with us to, evaluate what's there and how they would proceed moving forward with the replacement.
Could we make a motion to separate the siding as a separate detail to be discussed when demolition happens and see what the quality of the siding is? And kind of when we get to that point in the demolition, review the siding options separately?
Commissioners, I'm going to put that to you.
Because it seems like the concern is we're not sure until we rip it off, like what the actual repair, like if it's repairable or not.
I think that's pretty much what you suggested is,
That's
you know,
fine. I think that would be.
it's approved with the condition that once demolition occurs and the siding is fully visible, it's to be repaired or replaced in kind. And if that is not feasible, it is to go to staff or to work with the staff to find path forward.
Do you want to make a motion?
Well,
So this,
Almost there.
so I guess what I'm,
hold up for 1 second. Go ahead, Julie.
I was going to say, in the event, as the applicant has discussed, there is multiple types of siding. Does the commissioners have a preference on what type goes up?
Whatever the predominant siding is.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and I think we won't know until we.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And so, I would hate to put this all on the staff. So I would like, if possible, a subcommittee of just, if there's a drawing that's provided or some thought of, this is our approach.
That's
Once
fine.
we understand that at least there's some opportunity for a subcommittee to see it, feel good about it. If there's that thought, can that be something that's part of the motion?
Keep guiding it. That's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Okay. Go ahead, Melinda, if you want to make a motion. And that's fine. You don't have to repeat that. I think that it's pretty clear,
Yeah.
but was there anything else that you wanted to add to that? Go ahead.
One other item that maybe missed previously is from the site standpoint, probably want a little bit more information on, you mentioned brick pavers. I need to see what that material is. If there are any other landscape improvements that are being proposed.
is the material sample sheet not in the photos? It has like a picture of like the drawings of the windows and the paint sample swatches. It has a picture of what the actual bricks are.
Yeah, I didn't see any of that stuff.
Okay. Must have been on one of the previous submissions then.
So can that information be shared as part of the subcommittee too as well? We'll make sure. Is that okay? Is an approach to be able to help them move forward? Okay. So I think Melinda made a motion, right?
Sure.
Do you feel like you need to repeat that? If you
Do
don't
you
feel
need me
like.
to repeat that?
Yes, please.
Try.
Okay, thank you, Melinda.
Can I ask one other quick question? The porch section, is there a ceiling in that porch or is it open rafters?
Which porch are you?
The side porch?
The new construction. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to the question of what the final roof ceiling design is. I'm assuming we're going to reflect what's the existing porch, which does have a beadboard ceiling.
Good catch.
So you prefer that?
Yeah, that's what.
Yes, I mean, it's not going to be open.
Okay, just check.
I'm not sure the exact. Yeah, no, it will not be open. I do know that.
Good catch, Melinda. Go ahead.
Motion for VB 2205-014, 135 West Second Avenue to approve the application with the condition that once the siding is uncovered, it go to, that it be repaired or replaced in kind, and if that is not feasible, that it go to subcommittee for review.
And the brick.
Oh, and that the brick and material samples be submitted for sub-review as well, subcommittee review.
You want to make a mention of the clarification of Porch material?
Yes, and that clarification that the new addition porch will have a ceiling, beadboard ceiling to match the existing porch. Thank you.
Was there a second?
Second.
Wait, who was the second?
Yeah. I'll take it.
I'm giving it to Rob.
Let's move on, second.
Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and cast a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. I give you everything that you needed, right?
Yes.
Oh, we have to recommend,
The variance,
variance.
but I also need to know what that subcommittee is going to be.
oh, yes,
So,
subcommittee.
before we move on, and before we read the variance, but real quick, subcommittee, I want at least three, please.
3
I'm
subcommittees.
happy to do that.
Perfect. So we got Rob, Melinda, Tim.
Yeah,
Landscape, because the landscape piece may come back. on the sides, right?
Okay,
So when you come back, when you evaluate the siding, it'd be great to transpose that thought onto a drawing, like those elevations, of what that siding approach would be. And
So take each elevation color for, this one has this type of siding, this one has this type of siding, and what condition they're in to make it.
would you
really clear.
prefer photos or would you prefer a drawing? One we get, because
I think a little bit of both. Yeah, I
Probably
think it's a good
a
combination. It's just part of that submission is going to be, here is the story of what this entails, but we also want to understand what is the proposal, right? So, and then that information will be shared with staff and they'll share it with the subcommittee.
okay.
Perfect. And then the other one is there any issues or do we, can we get a motion on the recommendation of variance? I don't think it was being up the variances that needed to be there on the side yard. That was still concerned, right?
Is that a separate motion?
Yes, we just need a separate
Because we're recommending.
recommendation. That's correct.
Motion for BB 22 05 014 135 West Second for recommendation of variance as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is recommended.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, very helpful.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 6 with a quick reminder of where we are on time to be mindful of that. This is 148 Wells Avenue, and just for the commission, this is an application 1 of 2. We have the applicant. Okay, so this first application is to replace some existing wood windows with the weather shielded aluminum clad wood windows. These are from the approved list. The original leaded glass panels are to be retained and restored as required, and replace the plexiglass storm door with the aluminum storm door. Replace the front door with the custom-made wood door. The commissioner comments from the May 11th, 2022 hearing have been included. The applicant is no longer proposing to fill any of the original openings that had been previously discussed. Commissioners at the business meeting requested confirmation that the proposed windows were on the approved windows list, and it inquired as to which windows were being retained. Pages 83 and 84, which are PDF pages 27 and 28. Note which windows are being requested to be replaced and which ones they are intending to keep. Staff does recommend approval with the condition that the existing windows be repaired as needed to match existing. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.11, the standards for alteration. And John, I'll hand it back to you. So that's what we're at.
Thank you. Just state your name for the record and get you sworn in.
It's,
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to the application? Just I know there was some clarification last time, some feedback, and I think you were going to modify the application based on some of that feedback. Can you at least kind of offer a little bit of dialogue on what was modified?
So first of all, the leaded windows, all of them are to stay. And obviously repair is needed. But the idea is to keep up the character of the windows. There are several windows in the house that seem to be newer, not original to the house. Those are to remain. I think, especially the front of the building, all of the windows except for the leaded windows are to be replaced, and storm windows to be removed. So it's gonna keep up the character of the house.
And then the door openings, those are been resolved. So the doors, we're back to what we had
Correct,
talked about.
that's,
Perfect, okay. All right, so the windows, if I remember correctly, I think last month, what we were talking about is we had windows, and then there was probably two windows, if I remember. One was attic window that was a little challenging, or a turret window, if I remember correctly. But I'm having trouble trying to remember like which one of the windows seemed to be acceptable and which ones were of concern.
I think this approach takes much more detailed look at which windows are salvageable, which windows are really the character defining ones, and the extra effort should be put into restore. So thank you for going back and looking at that.
Any additional dialogue related to the windows? So right now, the windows that will be replaced, those windows will be in kind off the approved list. And there's no concerns related to that, and that lines up with the staff report, right, with the staff report. Makes sense, okay? And then their doors. So it seems like the things or the items that were of concern last month have been resolved in the application. I can say that.
I do have a question on the staff report. So it's recommending, because it's ambiguous to me.
That's what I was trying to understand too as well.
Okay.
Agreed. I agree. Go ahead.
It says that unless you have it handy.
I don't have it unfortunately because I wasn't able to download it before that.
Yeah, my download stops like at page 11 and I can't see. the
Staff
rest of the
recommends
37.
The staff recommends approval of the application with the condition that the existing windows be repaired as needed to match existing.
Okay. Understandable. Okay. So it seemed like the replacement is acceptable, but they would have to match existing. Right. And that's more so the windows that are non-leaded glass windows that were of our concern last application.
Okay, so
Right.
I mean, I'm always almost going to recommend we retain the windows and repair as needed, so I will default to your opinion, which I think you guys have already stated that you're okay with the replacement.
Understandable. Perfect. Does that help there? Clarify.
I think so. So we're saying that the replacements are a go for the majority of windows.
If that's what the commission's thoughts are.
Right.
don't wanna
Well,
speak
I mean,
for-
I guess that's what the staff report
That's-
is recommending.
That's correct.
Okay. At least I just want to start from there, I guess.
Yes.
Basically, the windows as submitted in this version.
I mean, that there's always that moment of saying, is there a threshold of when something can be replaced? I'm sorry, can be repaired and maintained versus something that can be replaced but still in kind.
Yes.
And that threshold that's what, it's hard for the staff to navigate that. So they're asking us to try to help with our approval of where that threshold is for this application. Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion?
I'll go on the record. I still have concerns about replacing many of the replacements that are not necessarily as in bad condition, but I don't think we're prepared to go window by window by window evaluating, conditions of them. So I think it'd be okay approving it, but I still have some reservations.
And I don't wanna push us past the discussion, so if we need to have more discussion on that, to just give the team more comfort of being able to properly or appropriately, service the application, as well as, just making sure that we are okay. Let's continue to talk it through. I don't mean to rush any. I know Jeff this is probably the first time you've seen this application, so.
Yeah, since it was way back when.
Yes, and so this application has, if you remember the leaded glass, there was the thought of maybe a 3-pane approach where the leaded glass would be, all the windows in the entire facades, or all the facades would be replaced. The leaded glass would be then transferred or salvaged and then transferred as a 3rd pane on the windows. That is
Well, that's been
put on the
revised.
inside.
That's since been revised.
That's right.
To keep those.
Those windows will be retained and repaired.
So this is kind of where my question is coming from, right? So the windows, those were previously on the list for repair, but because of the stained glass, now we're saying that they can be salvaged, right? And so it just seems odd to me that it would be only the stained glass windows could be salvaged, and not every other window would have to go, right? So that's where my concern is stemming from. I think that, if I had to pick out the windows that are probably in okay shape without having even seen them, I probably could take a good stab at it, but I think I'm certainly okay with the attic windows that don't have any, some of the attic windows are a little iffy in terms of the character they provide, but like the basement window, that's an easy win. But certainly any of the more prominent windows that are either street facing or very visible, would want to reconsider those to make, for.
There are some, if I may.
Sure.
There are several or some other windows that have been identified to stay, that are not leaded glass.
Okay. That does.
That-
That are not newer, because I know there's like the bump out on the back, that are part of the original.
Actually, now that the interior renovation is ongoing, actually turns out that the entire kitchen plus the kind of like a sunroom have been added at some point. Exactly sure when. But those are staying on the back of the house, and I think a couple around the house, and it's indicated in the CAD elevations.
Would there be any benefit to, and do you know them quickly? Would there be, like, the CAD elevations are, the team felt comfortable looking at the CAD elevations, but I'm kind of looking at the photographs, and I don't know how they translate between the two. So, but if the CAD elevations, is that fine for her to walk through those?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think that,
helpful. Helpful.
I mean, or-
Yes, please, whatever one
Kind
is.
of little. So, see, this is the front of the house. So, the top windows are to be replaced, like the transitory. So that looks like the front elevation is all to be replaced except for the stained glass. Now,
See that?
the back of the house. There's stained glass windows. Existing door. Transit. It's weird. This is newer addition. Side windows. That's the kind of like a side elevation. Three rows remain as the same place. That's the door that we originally tried to. This is everything's.
Sense.
So there's and these are stained glass windows. Here it looks like there was an infill. There were a couple. Some. Yeah, this is not, this is an existing window, but it's not the same. That's right.
Very helpful, very helpful. So I think, Reed, your question was, before all the windows were being proposed to be changed out. Now those windows that have concern based upon them being stained glass can be repaired. What is the reason why, these other windows that are still being proposed as being replaced can also be repaired?
That's a
And
good.
then last month's conversation was the two areas now is the basement and the attic were really the two locations that seemed like they were just not as much concern, but those two locations based upon moisture, conditioning of the different spaces, et cetera, were the ones that were of significant concern.
Correct.
That's very helpful. I was trying to remember.
Yep, you got it.
Okay. So is there an opportunity for those windows to that are being called to be replaced to be repaired in a similar fashion as the stained glass windows?
With my review of what there is right now, we have a contractor that's working on the house, on the interior remodel. He found, or his recommendation is that it would be just not feasible to repair it. And the windows are not structurally there to be adequate for replacement, for repair. And I mean, I don't know how else. They are leaking. They're just, it's their lifespan. They're 140 years old.
And that's understandable. I hope that, I know that we've talked about this last month and this month, and, I think that we're being very sensitive to it because again, in the historic area, that is one of the most significant things is the fenestration, and it kind of tells the story of the character of the home and things of that nature. So, we completely understand that, but I think that there's a lot of properties in the neighborhood that deal with these, these concerns from that perspective. So,
Yeah. And I mean, I've dealt with houses where contractors were able to sand the frames and repaint them and coat them and finish them up. In this case, it seems like with all the gaps everywhere, the rot in the wood, these are the things that I don't think the contractors would be able to do without actually replacing the entire frame of the window.
Basement and the attic. So like you mentioned last time, the basement and the attic. Are those are still on the table and those are all dedicated here to be
That's correct.
replaced. Okay.
Those are, they show the kind of deterioration of the crumbly frame.
Perfect.
Touch.
Okay. So doors, I think that's pretty clear. That's simple. The windows, I'm just kind of
You
hearing.
want to go back to the front?
Go
We
ahead.
haven't talked about that, so
Okay.
I don't want to get us off track, so.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's
Yeah.
go back to front door. Yes,
So the front door, just to be clear, I noticed now you're proposing to keep the stained glass in the new door? Is that the whole, both the
Transom.
transom and the whole
Yeah.
door? Okay. Okay.
that's a good clarification.
Yeah, I'm much more on board with that.
Okay. So it seems like the doors are okay. Keeping the stained glass and repairing them, I think we're all okay. I think that what I'm hearing in the room that there's some mixed emotions about the level of repair replace on the other windows outside of the basement and the one attic window. I think that was shown in that one image.
I think, let me kind of clarify then and hopefully get us somewhere. So, from these images, we come to an agreement that the attic and that the basement are beyond their usable life. The photos and documentation you provided for the other windows don't lead me to the same conclusion for the other windows. So if you can provide us with additional photos or anything that show, significant rot damage, things that are, that take these windows that are clearly showing that they're past the end of their life. I think that's what I would really need to see to be comfortable.
Thank you, Reed. Any other thoughts?
That's,
Okay.
I don't think we could be more clear than that.
No,
I'm trying to be as fair as I can without holding everything.
For sure. Okay. So, the thought is do we break the basement and the attic windows out or the doors, so the application could be split into the doors to be able to move that forward, the basement windows and the potential, I think that one attic window that is obvious in those
Do you want to
images.
include repairing the stained glass too?
I'm sorry.
Do you want to include repairing the
Yes,
stained
and
glass?
it would be including repairing the stained glass because that would, and then the second piece would just be able to continue the balance of the windows for you to be able to provide some additional information or assessments, reports that would allow us to base.
So I have a question. What about the storm windows? Because it seems like those are, I mean, with the historical windows of the value, you cannot see them. And now if we are replacing some of the windows, how's that gonna even play into the building? I mean, for the owner to have, even if those windows are, some of the windows remain clearly, I mean, that's nothing that either the architect, owner, and contractor recommend. We're still not gonna have storm windows covering the old windows and possibly some new windows without the storm windows. So storm windows are also a concern.
You want to speak to that, Kimberly, a little bit, just
Well, we haven't really quite talked about the windows because I've always assumed when we talk about the windows, it's the windows of the house. It's not the storm windows, which can be
let's
taken out, removed. So I don't know, just the commission feels comfortable with the removal of the storm windows. And we haven't specifically said anything about it, but that's kind of what I've assumed.
Yeah, I don't have any concern with the storm window. I mean, the storm window can come on and off, and I think that's, I don't have.
And we'd be okay if they had new storm windows or just not to replace them.
I think that they had a new storm window. I think that part of literature, because there's a variety of different storm windows, and I think that there's probably some already on the approved list that has a narrow sight line. Yeah, that we've worked through, but I think that is an option that we've approved in past applications is new storm windows with narrow sight lines.
So can I ask, so if the windows were to be replaced, if we were to go that route, what was the intention of the storm windows?
Well, the windows, summer windows, if there was no intention of keeping them.
Okay.
First of all, they are glass. So my concern is that we're gonna replace some of the windows, let's say in the front elevation. We're gonna have some windows, or the old windows cannot not have to have the storm windows. So those have to stay on the old windows. Just because of the ventilation issues and everything else. So with all the new windows, I don't see the reason of having the storm windows over the new windows. So I don't know, to me it seems like disconnect.
Makes sense. So right now, most storm windows, so the doors or the windows that are being repaired, those probably would still remain with the storm window. That window is being replaced, the thought is that storm window would be removed. I think that's what the application is saying. Right now, the basement and attic, I was suggesting breaking some portions apart. It would be the basement, that one attic window that was shown in the image. Alongside of the door application and the repair of the stained glass to be one portion, item A, to allow the application pieces to move forward. And then item B would break out the balance of the proposed replacing windows. So those could be further assessed, further documentation, that will be brought back for further evaluation of those windows that were in question. So I think that's what I was proposing. Does that sound like an adequate way to be able to help you move forward?
That surely would help. My concern is still the storm windows. I don't know, what's the direction on the renovation of the windows how is it gonna, is that if we're gonna have some storm windows, some with the storm windows, some windows with the storm windows, some without them?
Maybe that would be beneficial to table the storm window discussion based upon, let's go ahead and push that based upon the resolution of item B that we were looking at continuing, which was the balance of the repair. And let's look at the storm windows at that time. And that will give you some time to evaluate, to understand, hey, I would like to do X, and then we can respond accordingly.
Because also, if you're looking for a homogeneous,
Yeah.
no, yes, no, yes, a lot of people have actually taken the step of those old windows that you're repairing, and if there's still a need for that, it happens on the inside, not the outside.
Right.
So, I mean, that's, when you're talking about that, that's also an option.
Well, I think you do have an issue with, like, there's facades where you're keeping a stained glass window and then replacing 5 windows. And so you're still, I assume the stained glass windows are going to have storm windows. Maybe that's not the right assumption.
They do.
They do, okay. So you'd still have some, in that case, you'd still have some windows where.
If we look at the pictures, because, they're looking at the front elevation, the transom right above the big window, it doesn't have the transom. Actually, the side windows with, I don't know, I think we looked at the leaded glass, they don't. I don't know, to be honest, I have to correct myself, they don't have this storm windows.
Yeah, it seems like a majority of them don't.
The
Stained glass.
leaded, exactly, they don't.
Right. So it seems like we could take and carry the storm window conversation with the item B that would be continued. Does that seem like that's okay?
That's livable. Thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, no, that's perfect. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for talking it through. All right, so can we have a motion for item A, which would include the stained glass repair or the repair of the stained glass windows, the repair replacement of the doors per the application, and then there was one other item, the in-kind replacement of the basement windows and the attic windows off of the approved list. And that attic window is not windows, it wasn't plural, there was window that was indicated.
I believe the basement's the same. It's the same. But you want me to, I'll make a motion?
Yes.
Let's see if I can get these.
Thank you, sir.
All right, application VV 2204008 148 Buttles Avenue is item 1A, I guess we're saying, to be approved is the restoration and repair of the stained glass windows, the replacement of the attic window and the basement window with a window off the approved windows list. And what was the last one?
And the doors.
Oh, the door, yes. And the replacement of the doors as noted with the stained glass on the front door as on the plans. And then we could do the second one separate.
They're separate.
Okay.
One item just is in kind on the windows. Is that correct in terms of the team?
Yes.
Okay.
In kind.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
So the attic and basement, just one window, that's just to make sure.
We thought that the ones that were in the picture, we thought it was one attic window that was being proposed that was really in bad shape.
There were like the entire envelope, all the windows in the basement, all the windows in the attic. I'm sorry. That was a mistake.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sorry.
No, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, that matters. Yeah.
Yeah. So the windows on the basement, I don't think that's.
That windows, yeah, I mean, maybe
that's
we,
Not a concern.
do we, my preference would be then to lump the attic windows with the rest and get more documentation on them and let the basement window be the one that's approved. Is that
Yes.
acceptable to everyone? Okay. So amending the motion, I guess, to not include the attic windows, and it would only include the singular basement, but there is only one basement window, correct?
Three.
No, there's three.
There's three.
Okay, that's fine. We'll say basement windows, plural, all three of them.
Is there a second now? on that?
Second.
Any further dialogue on that? Very helpful. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion 1A is passed. So 1B would be to basically defer or at least continue the balance of the windows on the second, first, second, and third or attic levels for further review.
So motion for application 06 VV, or excuse me, VV 2204008, 148 Bubbles Avenue, portion 1B or 2, what's 1B, to table the application for the windows that we have not otherwise addressed in 1A, pending getting additional documentation on those windows, showing their condition, and any other reports or anything that you'd like to provide.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. I'll continue. So we have another, I think, application related to this property. So
Yes.
go ahead, Kimberly. Thank you.
Right. So same address. This application is to remove the existing slate shingles and to replace with a CertainTeed carriage house, the dimensional shingle and the stone gate gray. Commissioners at the business meeting requested a second slate assessment as the existing slate appears to be in good condition. Based on the documentation provided, HBO staff recommends the detention and repair of the existing roof. There are some individual slates which appear damaged, and staff recommends that those be replaced, but not the entirety of the roof. And kind of repeating that, staff recommends approval of the application with the condition that slate be retained and repaired, with any damaged shingles be replaced in like kind. Basis for recommendation is City Code 3116-11, standard operation.
Thank you. Don't have to swear you in, same applicant. Any additional thoughts?
I sent in the pictures, just working with the contractor who was cleaning up the outside of the house. He found that, first of all, the existing shingles are very brittle. When he tried to actually reposition some of them, he said it wasn't an option. Now, I did not get out there and I did not see the shingles with my own eyes. He reached out to a couple of contractors who said, who supported his recommendation. I sent in a couple additional pictures that, I don't know, it just seems like the house, as I mentioned before, was built in 1890s. The shingles are basically at the end of its lifespan. And you can see layers in them, cracking, chipping. And as soon as it just, from talking with the contractor, it seems like as soon as you try to move something, something else falls apart. And it just wasn't an easy task.
Would you be able to provide us with, 2 or 3 reports of reputable slate, related roofers or roofing subcontractors? to
Yeah,
be
I
able
guess
to-
what we're finding in the times that we live in, certain contractors really don't have the skill set, so they say, see you later, get rid of it. And the other thing is slate is part of this. Well, we don't see any type of slate replacement in kind. What we're seeing is an asphalt shingle. So, I mean, these things have to be considered. That front turret, I can't even imagine what it would look like with the asphalt shingles. You've just lost that totally. So I think we need to look very carefully, kind of like we looked at the big tree in the wall and the fence. This is a gem of the neighborhood. And, you know, kind of there's a responsibility to owning a house like this, and there's a responsibility of taking care of a house like this. So I hate to lose these kind of things. You're absolutely right. It's a 100-year slate. It's at the end of its life. But it's what we replace it with.
The cost consideration, because, I mean, that's, you know, replace,
So again, as a commission, we have a process for that. If in fact there's a financial hardship, they can go on and proceed down that path. Do you want to say anything, Kimberly?
So typically with financial hardship is the commission would have to deny the application and then hear it back at a rehearing. So it's a little bit more complicated, and we'd rather work with the applicant to find a solution than to issue a denial and then go through an appeal process. I will note there are two slate assessments here. I believe they might be in the middle of all the documentation, but I do know one was included. I did update, so the second one should be in there as well. So,
But I mean, what I said was, I'm okay. This is a 100-year slate. It's served its purpose. Its life is done. It's what we replace it with. That's my point. No, there's no sense in trying to fix this stuff, and there's no sense in trying to rearrange it, and there's no sense in trying to
I
find
appreciate your
good,
comment.
worthy slate off that roof and then feather in the rest of it. I think the issue is what your client, it wants to replace it.
And exactly, you know, he's proposing asphalt shingles, but it's purely based on the cost.
Yeah,
You know, because first of all, there aren't too many manufacturers of slate, and once, you know, getting it's just too expensive, all there is to it.
and there are simulated slate that is not real slate that mimics much better than a 2-tab or 3-tab asphalt shingle. And I think I can't speak for the price differentiation, but I think those are paths that you have to look into.
so the commission might be open to a different shingle not on the approved list. And, you know, more closely replicated the slate look.
I think that would be a more, or I should think, yes. I'm just gonna say yes.
Yes.
Yes. I think that would be in kind of some of the past conversations on you know,
Yes.
future properties that have some significance to the neighborhoods, for sure.
My other concern too, that isn't addressed in the application is this is a good picture, you can see the architectural sheet metal detailing that goes hand in hand with the slate roof, and it's not addressed. And that can be lost. That's very much a defining feature of this house.
That's very good point.
Sure. But she's mentioned the tenors red mentioned. Yeah. So, so I guess would there be the thought would be to continue the application to allow you to look at some alternate products for replacement and be able to come back to the commission for further discussion. It seems as though there's no need, since there are 2 assessments in the application, there's no additional need for any of that information.
My
That
one
would
question would
substantiate.
be, that I would find valuable is knowing what slate is on there, because depending on what slate it is, they have known lifespans, depending on which slate. They range from some slates are 50 years, some slates are 200 years, depending on which slate it is.
Gotcha. So you would have the ability of being able to provide some additional information that would clarify the type of slate that is on the property, and then what that proposal is to either repair or replace it with in a future hearing.
Yeah.
Or we could vote on the current application, which is to replace with the 3 tab. But it seems like you've probably heard most of the commissioners express some concerns with 3 tab. That would then be denied, and then you would have to pursue the other alternate process.
Or if it got denied, it could always come back with an alternative as well. But if it were denied, there is, I believe it is a 10-day window that you have to file the appeal in. And we know if you do financial reasons, that can be very difficult to prove. Because there are certain documents that you have to provide in order for that. I have not had an appeal for financials yet, so I don't quite know what all those documents are off the top of my head, or else you know.
Well, my biggest concern, obviously, I know that the owner did not even plan on replacing the roof. It was just found to be outdated, and it kind of like a surprise spending. And now, I did look at the lifespan, or trying to figure out what kind of slate it is. If it's, I think, black shingles or gray, one has 200-year-old span. I wasn't able to figure that out myself. The contractors did not address that. And I feel that no matter what kind of type of shingle it is, it's still past its lifespan. Now,
That, not to, I mean, the owner had to know something was going on at the attic. Everything's rotting up there.
Exactly.
Something's not working.
that's correct. And to be honest, even
And
showing
the other thing that
pictures-
we know from most of the past roofs, almost all of these slate roofs were what they call the 100-year slate, and they're just crumbling in front of us. And maybe there are some but there's a 200-year, if in fact it was a higher level house or they used a better material. But I think most of what we see on these roofs is the 100-year slate, and the minute you touch it, it just,
It started.
yeah.
I was wondering, would it be possible to expedite it in a way, to have it approved, except for the material? So, as you suggested, maybe submitting several as well acceptable financially for the owner products.
So the only reason I worry about that is we're in a crazy time, post-pandemic and pre-pandemic, where those approvals get misconstrued, and the roof gets done without the due diligence, and then we have to say, oh my gosh, you just spent $40,000 on this roof, and it's not what we agreed to, and we're very hard pressed to say. So
I think there are too many unknowns.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it was-
Because the metal trim work isn't addressed, if it does get changed to something else, if it has to be vented, how are you gonna address those venting details in ways that don't change the profile of the roof? You know,
it's a complex,
Yeah.
it's a complex.
And at the
it's
same
not-
time, I think it would be more beneficial for the homeowner, right? From that perspective, they know where they're going. There's an investment related to it, as you mentioned. So I think it would be way more beneficial for the homeowner to understand that before that step is taken.
Okay.
So yeah, I think what I'm hearing is continue. So is there a motion to continue?
Motion for application DV 22 06 013 148 Puddles Avenue to be.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion continued. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Right, moving on to application number 8, this is 77 to 79 West Hubbard Avenue. This application is to remove the existing accessibility area where the porch, 4 concrete stairs from the porch to a landing, and then additional steps after the landing, and install railings on each stairwell. 2 stair options have been provided. Commissioners at the business meeting were hesitant about the design of the proposed railings. The Historic Preservation Office considers structures that are over 40 years old to be historic. Commissioners need to decide if the ramp is a contributing feature to the structure. The ramp was approved in 1978, specifically August 1st of that year, and included the construction of a handicap restroom. This was all in the same COA. And the approved drawings have been included with the materials. The wrought iron handrails were placed in 1991 as part of COA number 91-8-2B. The design was not specified in that COA, but per the county auditor's 2003 photo, the existing handrail is likely what was approved in 1991. The demolition of the ramp was previously submitted for a conceptual review at the November 2007 hearing. No action was taken due to the absence of the applicant at that time. And since 1991, there have been no applications for maintenance of the ramp, so HPO does consider the lack of maintenance over the past 31 years demolition by neglect. There have been no applications received by HPO since 2007. Staff recommends approval of the application with the condition that the ramp is repaired to its previous condition. The basis for recommendation is City Code 3116-111, the standard alteration, specifically 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, and 12, as well as the Victorian village guidelines on porches and City Code 3116-26, civil penalty, which mentions the demo by neglect.
Thank you, Kimberly. Can you state your name and get you sworn in, sir?
Michael Linsker.
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, go ahead and offer anything with the application, sir.
I think said it all in the application that I wanted to express.
Okay, that's perfect. All right, open the floor to commissioner comments. So, seeing that there's a proposal to remove the side, ramp, I think that the recommendation from staff is to maintain the ramp and build it back based upon what was previously approved. Reading the recommendation right from staff.
Commission does need to decide if it's a contributing feature, if it's a contributing feature.
So I'll weigh in on this one. I don't see the ramp as a contributing architectural feature. And having said that, I think I would move more towards what was proposed, but pull out a little bit of detail on the replacement.
I agree. I also don't see, I mean, it was fairly sensitive for something that was done in the 70s, but not a contributing feature to this
Yes.
building.
I agree.
Agreed? Yeah. Okay.
The reason it was done, according to the previous owner, was they had mentally handicapped who were renting the place. That's,
Got it.
or maybe they rented it.
That makes sense, and it's nice that it was accessible, but, yeah.
I couldn't imagine it being contributed.
So can you guys talk about, there's two proposals now that are being proposed for the approach of just addressing the two sides.
I will weigh in. I personally, I had a primary proposal,
Okay.
just in case that was missed at all, but,
I see it.
so I'd rather the primary, if you guys are okay with it, the primary one, it just seems like a better proposal, more like it in that picture that I provided.
So that's the A1 sheet, which is I think it's in red. It says primary site plan. Is that the one
primary
that you're
site plan,
referring to? Okay.
Yeah, let's,
So that's all, the stairs splitting at the bottom.
Keeps it consistent with its mirror image stairs.
More better symmetry, yes.
so I guess my only question is this sort of rusticated board, looks like on the two porches, is that still there? This rusticated sort of brick,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What happens to the right of that.
It's still there.
No, what I'm saying is his new material that will be seen. What is that? I don't see that detail.
That's true, because on the stair on the left, it's always covered by a car.
So, I
The
mean,
historic pictures and the new pictures.
that's why I say I think we just need to pull out and refine these details so
Yeah.
it reads well. Or reads like it should, I should say.
So when you say pull out and refine the details, is just some additional information on
Yep,
that
finishes.
the intersection of that,
Yeah.
but with the thought that the primary site plan that was indicated in red would still be the appropriate approach.
Yes,
Right.
To clarify, we're specifically talking about the kind of exposed facade below the stairs.
what are those surfaces that are exposed that we're gonna see that,
So that triangular piece that kind of is immediately below the stair, what that material is.
It looks in the historic photo like it was just exposed concrete, but it's also a small grainy photo, and I can't see what the other side was.
Right.
yeah.
I mean, photos of the other side would be very helpful.
So I think here's what I want to get across. You're not gonna have to do the ramp, which is a huge expense. But that doesn't mean we cut out detail to bring this back and make the porch look correct. So this rusticated brick that I see, it's probably poured concrete block. What goes with that as far as the stair, as far as the wood detail, and then as far as the retaining wall? So what will we see? That's what I don't know. And that's the detail that we don't have, and that could really go left to center.
So are you following?
I didn't bring my pictures.
Oh,
We were
it's-
talking about the pictures.
Can
Can you point behind you?
So let's go back to the real picture. Back. One forward, whatever. You see this right here?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's still there.
that's correct, and that's a major part of this facade. So what happens when I put my stair? What does that look like? What does that retaining wall look like? What are those materials? When that stair turns and addresses the street, what am I gonna see there? Because those both sides need to speak to one another, and they have to look like they were planned.
Can you go to the first page? So,
Oop, yeah.
so this is all still there, but basically, what is this?
Yes,
And
Correct.
what is this little knee wall?
yeah,
Whatever
because
is
that
left
knee wall wasn't, I don't think that knee wall was there before that we're seeing in the new stuff that they're proposing. Yes,
And it's kind of difficult just because of the tree or the car in this,
Yeah.
to try to understand what the other side is.
Yeah.
So it seems like the whole goal is that there's a sense of symmetry between the two sides.
yes,
So how do you,
So so you want me to figure, or I'm assuming you're alluding to the fact that you want me to figure out what's on the other side, which I can go take a look.
no, I want left and right to look right, but more importantly, you might have to do something to the left side to make both sides work. That's what I'm saying. We're taking out a whole ramp, that's a whole new slate. But you have to also look at what's existing over there, because you might have to do something over there also. Not tear it out, but I'm saying they have to speak to one another. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying.
Yep.
so does that help us today in terms of being able to get some options off the table? There's a clear understanding of what direction is there. But I think that there's just a need for some additional documentation, maybe zoom in a little bit on the details related to that one side against what's existing.
Okay, do you have, is there something that you're looking to see with just some kind of symmetry is all you're looking for? Or is there a certain type of material you're looking for?
Well, I think symmetry as far as appearance, but also symmetry as far as materials also. So I don't see poured concrete next to that rusticated formed brick.
Even though
That's
it
what it
might be
looks
there right now. or in that photo? The old photo?
I understand that that's what it was, but again, we're improving this situation, so I would like a little bit of, I mean, you could throw up a concrete stair along that, and you could throw up a railing. I'm not so sure that that would be acceptable or appealing if in fact it was a new build or it was something that we were repairing. We're taking something totally off. And I can't see the left side. So I don't know.
So in the event the left side is poured concrete and was like that, you still don't, you want me to redo both sides?
No, you know what? If I saw the left side could be perfect. And all you have to do is replicate. I don't know. All I know is the right side, you're turning that whole ramp off and the whole corner of the house is exposed. So want to know what you're going to do with that condition and what the finished condition.
I'm just trying to figure it out so that I.
Yeah, the left side might be, fine, and all you have to do is replicate it. I can't see and I don't know what it is.
To be very helpful. So does that seem like that's pretty clear as far as what that next step would be?
I'll have to just figure, yeah, just wait until the next meeting and is there a way I can, because the, as you see, it's crumbling right now. Before then, I'm gonna have to wait till the next meeting no matter what to get a solution. Is that what I'm understanding?
It seems that
Can we?
We do conceptual approval.
Well, it's not a conceptual application, so.
Yeah.
no, but in the
But you
event-
can take that, we could say you can take the ramp down and have a clean slate. The next one, you'll either know
Because of
what.
the hazard.
No.
Huh?
I mean, standards for demo,
Yeah, it's just,
which,
I don't want to do that, guys. I don't want to.
yeah.
I don't think that that's smart for what we need to do. In terms of, we would love to move the application forward.
I would like to note in the event that this is resolved by the business meeting and we have a forum, it could be resolved then. But
That
that's
is
like a
very
right
true.
thing we do.
That is very true. That is very true. No, I think it could, but I think that, yes, that's a great point. Do you feel as though, as a team, this could be a subcommittee type approval where
I think it could
we
be.
zoned in now, we understand that what option is viable. It just needs some additional detail that we'll be able to move forward to be able to allow.
So I have hesitation with that because I know from previous subcommittees, sometimes the next hearing has happened before I have a response from all the subcommittee. I don't want to worry out.
That's understandable. So
Well, shame on those commissioners that didn't
Well,
show up.
let's go. To
We have a
business.
new,
Let's
we
go
have
to
a new
business.
group of people and they have a responsibility. So if we set up a meeting, you should get a response from everyone and we should be able to move this forward.
Well, I'm just worried if we do a subcommittee review because that can, there can be some me chasing down people for replies because emails got lost in shuffles.
Probably better to send it to the business meeting. I mean, that's.
Well, or the next hearing with the hope that we have a forum for the business meeting, they can get things resolved by the business meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, they could always have things partially done, it can move to staff with contingencies at a business meeting, but we'll just want to aim for the worst case scenario that it does go to the next hearing.
I'm pointing, I'm looking at you because I would love to get your eyes back on it, just from that perspective.
I'm probably gonna go by it tomorrow
Okay,
to look at it, just
okay,
for my own edification.
understandable. I just want to make sure, since you had a lot of good comments, so I just want to be sure. So it seems as though we would continue it, and next month application, there may be at the business meeting a way to be able to move it forward a little bit faster. If it did go to a vote now and then went to a subcommittee, the alignment of those two would probably be the same. And potentially may be longer, depending on the responsiveness of the subcommittee.
I mean, quite frankly, looking at the elevations, everything looks in place. What your solution is, how you're going about it, and how the stairs are supposed to be. It's just that left side that we don't see. And it could be in line or it couldn't be in, I don't know.
I would recommend continuing.
Does that seem like that's the right thing to do, sir? I don't hear. Okay. Well, motion to continue, guys. Can I have a motion to continue?
Motion to continue BB dash 22 dash 06 dash 014. 77 through 79 West Hubbard Avenue.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
I
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you, sir. We appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Are you, one quick thing, you're only worried about the left side, somebody had said something about the side, facing the alley. Is that,
Well, those materials wrap around that corner a little bit,
yeah,
but I think when you
Whatever
look at the
these ones-
elevation.
I just wanna make sure I do the right.
Yeah, if you look at the elevation, how you represented it, it's just what those finishes are.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Application number 9, this is 1036 Highland Street. This work has already been completed, but it is to install a 1x4 vertical skirting with a 3/4-inch stack and a horizontal 1x10 board to cover the 2x8 porch floor framing and a 1x6 board on the bottom to provide a bottom detail, paint to match the existing house. Commissioners at the business meeting requested additional photographs of the subject property porch. They wanted to see the porch skirting up close without the plants and once in the photograph. Those photos have been submitted and included. They also requested that HBO staff and include the previous COA, which had included the materials. HBO staff does support the vertical skirt board over the previously installed lattice, which was also previous approval. But poses to the commission if the gap between boards is too wide and if the boards need framed as has been previously suggested. Staff does recommend approval of the application with any modifications or clarifications made by the commission. Basis for recommendation, City Code 3116-11, these standards for alteration.
Thank you. Can you say your name, get you sworn in, sir?
Seth Clark.
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Can you just let us know a little bit about how we got here? No, just.
So 1978.
No.
So the original lattice from the pictures so that lattice, the pre-existing lattice was actually painted PVC. And so when it was removed, I wasn't trying to do the incorrect thing. I thought that was an acceptable skirting, as pictured there. And having done it on several porches for customers in the past, in Victorian Village. So I did it, and then I think Mr. Valentine, or I'm not sure how you say his last name, came out and said that, hey, that's not actually what was approved on the original COA. So we're here to amend the original COA to make sure we're in good standing and not trying to do anything incorrect or inappropriate.
And just to clarify on the approved COA, it was just what was on the approved COA?
The approved COA had the vertical skirting that was to repair and replace in like kind.
Okay, gotcha.
You do have the horizontal skirting throughout. Staff's okay with this, just with the code violations and the gap, we wanted to run it by the commission.
I gotcha. Okay, very helpful, very helpful. Any concerns or any thoughts related to this application?
No.
No issues. Okay, is there a possibility of a vote?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion for BB 2206 015 1036 Highland Street as built.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too as well.
Yep.
All right, application number 10 is 968985 North High Street. This is to retain the PO masonry on the north elevation of the building. The area was supposed to be finished with non-permanent finished materials. Commissioners at the business meeting requested HBO staff include the previous COA, which noted the temporary approval of the paint. CO 80-19-9-015, which was issued in September of that year, has been included in the materials. HBO staff did request documentation of what materials have been explored, and the applicant did let staff know that any of the finished materials would have to be secured above the adjacent building. There's no room in between them. And would require easements on the roof of the adjacent structure to install and maintain and repair. The applicant has stated that the paint seems to be best finished and that the CCAD and Short North Arts Group are not interested in placing a mural in that location. Staff recommends continuation of the application to allow a more permanent finished material to be explored for the previously issued COA to address this issue of the original COA. Basis for recommendations, 311612, the standards for new construction.
Thank you, Kimberly. Can you state your name for the record?
Connie Klima.
Connie, you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Connie. You can offer some thoughts on the application or if you have any additional.
Yeah, I think that you have probably seen the pictures that were provided that show the location of this area and also the fact that the paint that was chosen and actually approved by this commission actually does a very good job. I don't think you have accessibility to Google Earth, correct, on here?
I don't believe Google Earth. We've got Google Street View.
If you take a further look back, you'll realize that this is somewhat of a parking corridor in the back with the rear houses. This particular area is not seen unless you're standing here in between the backs of the residences facing the street and the side of this building and the backs of the buildings on High Street. It's interesting because I think two people prior to me, you listed some of the code sections. I think it was on 77, 79, if you go back to that. It talks about natural materials. And actually, I don't believe that this material being concrete and painted, it's duplicated, lots of painted concrete, lots of painted brick in the Short North area. And I don't believe it's actually even unattractive at all. But the most important thing to remember, I think, is that when it was determined that it could not be constructed, the paint was seen as a means to address the fact that it wasn't and opposite, basically standing out there, this bright concrete. If you look at my pictures that we've sent in, and you can hardly tell, depending on the light, if it's not brick or if it's not all concrete. So I'd rather have a conversation, find out what your thoughts are, because I don't find it offensive, and I definitely don't find the fact that it's concrete and new construction that's painted, that it's going against code. The only thing it's going against is the fact that the original architect believed that brick could go there, and he didn't, and now can't. I always go back to when I constructed the houses along 670, tall 3 houses. Those were all brick, and my architect was telling me that we're going to put up if you've noticed, their block walls, concrete block walls. And my contractor looked at the architect and said, well, are we going to face those walls with brick to match the building? And he said, why would we do that? They're concrete. He wanted it to be concrete. And this particular thing, we should have said we wanted it to be concrete at the beginning, but we didn't. So I think that it's an effective way of taking care of an original mistake on a drawing.
So any thoughts from the commission?
And I do want to know, Commissioners, you all did receive the email.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'll start. I walked by it and I didn't realize there was a problem. When you look at the painting and you look at the texture and you look at everything that's going on, I think it's fine the way it is. This isn't a elevation that is on High Street. I do understand the neighbors looking at it, but I'm even hard pressed because the brick and the coloration and the fenestration of that concrete, that it all works together. And sometimes paint, a matching color of paint is probably the best solution in many solutions when you have two different things going on. I'm fine with it.
Any thoughts?
If one of the concerns of putting something else there is having an easement to maintain it, this paint is gonna have to be maintained more than any other finish.
And that was the other thing I was gonna say. If in fact there's anything we should say is that surface has to be maintained as
It's not a
it,
permanent finish. Yeah.
well, but what I'm saying is if it does weather, if it does peel, the owner has a responsibility to keep it as a homogeneous.
Not if, with,
Yeah,
it's paint.
yeah.
Yeah, and we understand that it has to be maintained. The point is that if you go in with anything that's dimensional, it's going to be over top of the other type building because the building is not close, it's too close.
How close is it to the lot line?
I don't have that exact detail, but it's obviously close enough that we couldn't even get in between the paint. The paint's just above.
I mean,
And not only that, but can I add something else? When you start talking about putting another substance there, you start saying why? What is the purpose of that substance? I mean, what would be the purpose of putting some other type of a finish there when it comes to this point where you have a concrete wall, new construction that's painted that is hardly noticeable and not unattractive?
Yeah, it's okay. I think you made your case. I think it's understandable.
Okay.
It's no problem. I just don't want to battle back and forth. If there's a debate, I just don't want that to start. So I appreciate that though. Sure. Any other thoughts or concerns? I know, Melinda, you were just finishing your thoughts. I just wanted to make sure you had that opportunity.
yeah, I will be interested in knowing what the space is there. I mean, it's one thing if there's not 5 inches or so, so you couldn't easily add masonry, but you know, if there's 2 inches, you can add metal panels, metal siding, something that is a more permanent finish that isn't going to require frequent painting over top of someone else's property.
Anything else?
Yeah, so my concern is actually more procedural, right? So this was supposed to come back a year from 2019, so come back in 2020 with ideas for how to finish it, right? And that correct me if I'm wrong, but that didn't happen, right? So I think at a minimum, whether or not we say that this is okay and that this proceeds, we need to see what the options are available to us to at least follow through on the direction from the previous COA.
Makes sense. Anyone else? I mean, I would agree from that perspective. I mean, I understand the concerns. I understand the limits. It would be understood, or it would be helpful to really understand that dimensional, kind of constraint, to be able to say that this is the right and the most appropriate, solution long term. It's a little disappointing on my regard, just of the significance of the project and that detail kind of got left behind. It's unfortunate that it did. So I think it's at that time that we made that determination a year ago, or that this would come back to evaluate proposed solutions. I think we at least owe that to understand the constraint. Is there a proposed solution other than paint? And if not, then at that time after evaluation, we'll be able to at least make a judgment. But without really truly understanding those limits and those constraints, it's really hard to say that. We understand the photographs, understand that, it's a lot less of an eyesore from that perspective and such, and not discounting that at all. But it seems like we do, or we should take that step of understanding those constraints. And if there is a permanent solution that can be installed. That's just my thoughts.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
If I go back to, when I go back to my client, I would say, what are the alternatives? Well, we can't do brick. So it can't match what's there. What are the alternatives? Stucco, which would seem odd. I mean, it comes down to, I understand some of the slap on the wrist We had COVID, we had a lot of things going on. And I know the client was searching for alternatives, like they went to CCAD, they did all kinds of things to think of maybe ways of making this a wonderful little spot. But in the meanwhile, they did come back in and say, we'll go ahead and get it painted.
For sure.
And it looks pretty darn good. So I guess if I go back, they're gonna say, what would be something that they want to see, other than saying, we did something bad and didn't come back on time? What, I thought about this because you had emailed me and said, well, what were the alternatives? And I said, well, we looked into brick, it won't work.
So I think we have to add this, just let's go one more step. We're asking this client to do a lot. If this was a built piece, and you guys haven't been here, but we've had many people that have built or done things, and they've come in and it's built, it's there. Basically, we have said, what does it look like? Is it acceptable? Because we're really not gonna put, in my 22 years of being a commissioner, we've only pushed one application, and that was the recent carriage house behind Buttles, which they went way left of center. I think if any of you guys would walk and look at that and not have known it was an issue, it wouldn't be an issue.
And Jeff, I guess I'm not discounting that from that perspective. I'm not discounting that at all. I think that what I'm hearing and I'm listening to is what people are asking for is being able to procedurally take that step. That there should be a proposal of a permanent solution that should have came back, and the hope is that it comes back and evaluate. If that permanent solution is this, then that's different. But
That is the permits, that's what we request.
I guess show us your homework.
and so that's all that's being asked, right, from that perspective, is being able to ask if, hey, this was a temporary solution at that time, it was being asked as a temporary solution. They've been able to proceed with a temporary solution. The temporary solution has given a sense of a mask to the issue. But when it comes back, what is the proposed permanent solution that would address this area? I think that's the step they're asking.
Then I do have to ask, if I have this homework, I mean, what would be a finish that you would be accepting if it's not brick?
I think some of that may depend on the space for the commissioners, because that was mentioned.
Yeah, I think trying to understand the constraint, if it's 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches, that's sort of start to narrow in on a solution. And then with those solutions, being able to bring those back, it's really tough without really understanding the condition to say and suggest this aesthetically would be right, because it's not necessarily 100% an aesthetic concern. That's just for me, all right? We want this situation, we want it to work. That's all. We want the solution to work. We can't say go add brick because that solution won't work. So, right.
I know, I really don't know what I don't know.
I guess this is almost like a procedural thing, not a real life thing that we're supposed to be trying to take our village members through. I mean, who has looked at this? We're supposed to be prepared to look and talk about this stuff.
Completely.
Not about procedural actions and not about what could have been or what would have been. Because
I'm not saying
we've been in this situation, I don't know how many times, and now we're going back to a procedural thing.
no,
Where-
not necessarily. Jeff, I think that the whole idea was that this application at that time was a solution to buy a year of time to be able to evaluate a permanent solution. That's all. That's what the application was. Not trying to say, is this a permanent solution? That's the question then. If there should be additional opportunities to propose permanent solutions. If there's no opportunities and this is the proposed solution that the applicant's doing, then we can make a vote on that particular application or this application, really the paint application.
Got it.
So I'm not trying to drag it through the mud. I'm just hopeful that we can move this forward but it seems like there's some concerns with the paint. So,
Well, I mean,
that's all. That's just my thought. That's what I'm hearing. I'm reacting to.
I hear you.
Okay.
I just think this is a lot to ask a client to do in the situation that we have right now. This isn't a facade on High Street. This isn't some defacing of historic brick.
Jeff, I completely understand. I'm listening amongst the commission.
Got it.
That's what I'm doing.
If I can just clarify though, my application states the owner wants to request the painted portion be final. And that was because we have lived with it. We believe it blends in. And it is the same, and depending on the light and the shadows. Can you show some of the other pictures?
I believe there's also the ones further.
That were in your
At the very end.
presentation.
Yes, those.
That's before.
Also before.
That's now. That's now.
I mean, quite frankly, that would be the hardest architectural studio project to give someone to figure out what would be that solution.
Not at all.
For a square like that on the side of an unfinished building,
I don't think that's anywhere close to being the hardest architecture. I mean, all I'm asking to see is, okay, this is how much space we have. We know this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. We don't have the room for it. I just want to see the homework saying that, we were told, go back and take a year, evaluate it, and let us know it'll work. But well, right now, all I hear is, we just want to keep the paint. That's not responding to what the how the application is approved.
but isn't what was just said out of the application, they're saying this is the finished product. This is what we have. And so either it goes up for a vote.
Let's say exactly. Either it goes up for a vote, as is, based upon the applicant saying that this is the proposed final solution. Or there's a continuance if other commissioners haven't weighed in yet, to just, their thoughts on that.
So that would be Mark on the computer. I'm just taking notes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, okay.
So any other thoughts or concerns expressed by anyone else? I just want to make sure that, there's a certain temperature in the room, that's at least understood.
Let me just to kind of solidify my thoughts on it. I don't necessarily have a problem with the paint. I want to acknowledge that the commission said that everyone was in agreement that the paint was not a permanent solution, and that there would be permanent solutions coming. And my concern is that, it's not really setting precedent per se, but it kind of sets an example of, well, if you push them off for a year and then just tell them it's permanent, it's fine, right? To Melinda's point, I haven't seen any due diligence about what other materials have been proposed or why. I don't even know why the brick doesn't work, but I'm giving that as a given, right? Because presumably that was discussed at that meeting. So I guess that's kind of what I'm looking for. I understand it's kind of perhaps a needless exercise, but I think I don't think it's unreasonable to make sure that the homework was done, right? Because if the homework was done, it should be just as easy to provide it. So here's what we looked at and why it didn't work, right? And if that doesn't exist, then that's a problem.
And that's fine, and I hear that. I just want you all to know that this commission is consistent. So when we fall upon this again, we better be consistent with our call. That's all I'm gonna say.
I concur with Commissioner Hisson.
Completely.
Just quickly, I appreciate the commentary and the concerns. I personally don't have an issue with the application as proposed. I think the fact that brick was not going to work, and that was clear from the beginning, we're talking inches here regardless. I'm comfortable with what is proposed. Mr. Skinner?
Yeah, I agree.
I'm comfortable with this. I think when you start reverse engineering like this, you end up making problems probably worse. And in my opinion, I don't see another way to make it look better than what you've done.
So do you want to go ahead and do a vote?
I have to tell you the truth, I don't know how your vote works, because there's 6 of you.
So if it's a tie, it fails.
It appears to be a tie right now.
Yeah, I would recommend continuing, just so we get the extra information, and that might make some of the commissioners feel a little bit more comfortable one way or the other.
And again, Connie, there was history there, so I was talking it through more so to a lot
I
of the.
totally
Okay,
understand.
so I just want to make sure, and so I'm challenging Jeff only because I want everyone to understand the process and what we've gone through, not to drag the application. That is not my intent here. So it was more information to allow them to make their own thoughts and opinions.
Sure.
That's what I was trying
No,
to do.
and I totally understand.
Okay,
And if I can just close this, because
Yes,
we'll have to continue, because I can't afford to
understood.
lose. But in my discussions with the builder and the owner of this property, which I represented them when they built it, when you say what things do you explore, like, well, of course had planned to do brick, didn't work. We don't want to do stucco. It's not part of what should be there. They agreed to do the color and it looks great. And we actually think that works. So let's go back and just say, let's do that, because we're not going to put wood panels up there. We're not going to put vertical siding. We don't want metal panels. I mean, that's why I said, if you guys can come up with an alternative, you want us to explore and tell you why it doesn't work, we can, but those were the thoughts they went through. So you know that.
Understood. So in that future application, being able to have that understanding of that dimension and such, I think that would help some of the commissioners be able to check that box and be able to move the vote forward. Okay. Is there a motion to continue?
Motion to continue, application BB-06-017-968 North High Street.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Connie.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Can we take just a
Like-
small 5-minute break?
Like less than 5 minutes if we can possibly do it. We only have 3 more left.
I
to
know,
do,
just,
so.
that's perfect. 3 minutes.
3 minute
3
break
minutes.
for more.
I know that everybody was like at 6 o'clock, like last time, so. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
right. Number 12 is 115 to 119 West Second Avenue. Do we have the applicant here for that? All righty. I'm just noting that down real quick because we are going to skip ahead. We will come back
Go back to-
after the last one.
And is that 12 or is that 11?
11 went to staff approval.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, it is. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's always good to check.
Yeah.
But sometimes I have skipped over once.
Okay. 12 was the front porch. Gotcha.
Yes. So number 13 is 21 West Hubbard Avenue. I need to read about our applicant here for that. So this application is a conceptual review. This is for the demolition of a rear single-story portion of the building and the construction of a 12-story mixed-use building at 1725 West Hubbard Avenue. The new structure will be built in the rear section of the building and designed with all four sides being masonry with the intent to select a brick similar to the existing materials. I've included the comments from the May 11th, 2022 hearing. Commissioners at the business meeting requested to see a summary of the different height options. This includes the different heights side by side and in an elevation context. The applicant has submitted the requested information and it's been included. A site visit was scheduled for Thursday, June 2nd with commissioners. Commissioners present at the site requested the COA for putting the storefronts in along West Hubbard Avenue. That was part of COA number 7-12-19 for approved for opening previously blocked in windows to allow the installation of windows and door systems along West Hubbard Avenue. Commissioners also requested to see the previous conceptual reviews for the demolition of 21 West Hubbard and the previous proposed design. Pictures from the site visit have also been included in the materials. Commissioners need to decide if the area proposed for demolition is a contributing structure. The 1921 to 51 Sanborn map has been included in the materials. The earlier Sanborn maps show an empty space at the corner of West Hubbard and North High. The service area was built at the same time as the showroom in 1924. It is less decorative, but does that mean it's less important? Does the rear of the building contribute the same amount of information as the front of the building? Does it contribute to the overall story of the structure? All things that should be considered. HBO staff has included a circa 1950s photo of the property showing the full extent of the car dealership. And going back to the new build, is the proposed height appropriate? The addition is along the rear portion of the building with fronting located along West Hubbard and North Wall Street. Hubbard Park Place, which is west of the site, appears to be 6 stories tall, and to the east 800 North High and Italian is 10 stories tall. The applicant has requested approval for massing and height, and as previously stated, I did check with management and conceptual approval may be granted. But the commission does not need to provide that for the project to move forward. Staff recognizes a project of this scale may need a number of reviews before the commission is comfortable granting any approvals, as well as that the applicant may want it in order to move forward. Staff does defer to the commission if they want to grant any conceptual approvals, and this is per the City Code 3116.9 issue. HPO staff does recommend the following order for discussion: the evaluation of the current structure, proposed demolition, and the proposed design and height. And since it's conceptual, commissioners should offer feedback so that the applicant can further refine the proposal for a future meeting. Basis for recommendation is 3116.14, standards for demolition, 3116.5, and standards for construction.
Can you give me one clarification? So 3 components. The first one, I didn't even catch. You said current. Can you your 3 components in terms of evaluation?
So evaluation of the current structure.
Current structure. There you go. Okay, I missed structure.
It's okay. Sometimes my words.
No, that's okay. Proposed demolition and then the design and height. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Could you guys state your name and get you sworn in here?
Dan Haynes, Mark Wood.
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Anything to add to Kimberly's?
I think my comments would be geared towards the latter section on sort of recommendations for mass and height. I think we've gone through a
we've done a couple of these reviews. We've tried to listen to those comments, and hopefully the materials we provided is related to mass and height, showing that we've come back with a couple of options showing some lesser heights, but we're still trying to make sure that the structure has enough in it that it will sort of function in itself. So, trying to make sure that we can get the appropriate parking in the building, and everything is sort of giving us a density to the building that we're proposing. I think that our initial proposal for the options A and B is really a subset of that one, meaning we're pushing that mechanical systems back so it has less of an appearance of height on there. So we initially came in at 180. We're now saying that that's at 160 for that height. I think we still feel that that is the most appropriate because it allows us to be a little bit more slender and less of the volume of the building. We've then come back with an option C of maintaining where we're proposing for the removal of the back portion of the building and cantilevering over the existing the upper grill where that's at, but that gives us a little bit more density to the piece. And so we've got a little bit more thickness to the building. So we think that appropriately that the more slender building is visually more additive to the neighborhood.
Yeah, I don't think I have too much to add. I appreciate Sean and Tim coming out to look at the back part of the building. I think you've understood the challenges with the building from a marketability space perspective. I think one of these historic pictures shows the car dealership when the lot next door was owned by the same dealer, and that really reflects differently than it does now. Got the infill development happen next door with the condominium building. So I think I will defer and listen to you and respond to questions at this point.
So I know it's kind of a complicated project from that perspective. So I'm going to use the three components that I think most everyone understood where I was going. So let's just talk about the current structure, the merits of the current structure. That's the first one. So any thoughts on that? I think that there was some additional information that was shared. Tim and I did get a chance to just at least walk the building in terms of the utilization of the back portion of the building and some of the concerns related to daylighting, and there's a lot of office space that is not necessarily usable or desirable at this time from a leasing standpoint. That's just our observations of, at least my observations of what I saw. I think there's probably been a sequence of adaptations related to windows being put back, and that's more so on the facades that currently address Hubbard just because of the ability of being able to put windows in. The zero lot line condition on the alley is where, or not on the alley side, but on I guess that would be the rear. That is where that's the concern or constraint. They don't have the ability of being put windows in that rear elevation. I think that's what we saw when we were on site. Any thoughts about and I think all of the materials were captured adequately from what Kimberly has shown and shared. So those were our observations as far as the exterior as well as the interior conditions. Any thoughts or comments on the materials that we're seeing?
Sure. Maybe first off, I appreciate the additional materials that are being provided. I think it's very helpful, and as we evaluate the historic structure state of it, I think something came to light. I think it's important. We see it here is the existing condition of that prior to storefront along Hubbard. That was a retrofit. Wouldn't we say that was how many years ago? 15?
Don't ask me to do that. This
So I think, taking that under consideration when we evaluate the historic structure rather than what we see today.
I think it's interesting. I think in our process over the years, I think we really have saved the gem of the building, which was the front facade, which speaks of its history. I think this is a lot, I don't say it's a lot, but it's similar to the Kaufman project where we had the back end of the building, but what we really saved is the jewel. And I think it speaks to also Fireman's Insurance, which is now a beautiful museum, part of Columbus. Again, it was the back that we got rid of to save the front jewel. I think, now what we look at in our neighborhoods, north and south, are extruded blocks. And I think this project really does talk about something much different than that, much thought into it. What is it going to look like? What is it going to appeal? How it's going to appeal to the neighborhood? So I really like the way this thing's going, considering what our options could have been.
I think that's important too, and it came to light to me during the walk is the fact that this is all, it almost appears like it could be two different historic structures. The fact that it is all one structure, I think it does put a little different spin on how you evaluate, again, saving the gem or the jewel or the contributing portion of the historic structure versus entirety. I guess.
Any other thoughts? Don't have to speak. I just wanted to make sure I get everybody some time. That's all. So.
And again, I also appreciate the work that you did with the visuals, so we can see the massing, so we can see angles, so we really do get a good feel for what this thing. And from a new commissioner standpoint, that should be the baseline evaluation, because many times we don't get that. Not a massing model, not a visual, and we've made some mistakes by not insisting on that stuff.
And I would echo that. I think that just, being able to get the right information on the table early. I think we talked about that last month. It's just being able to get those right resources, have the right discussion. So there's clarity. There's at least some sense of we're taking the right steps forward and then we don't have to backpedal. So we want to be cognizant of that too as well. So I would agree, Jeff. I'm going to switch just to proposed demolition. I know 1 and 2 kind of go a little bit of hand in hand. So I'm just going to stop on 2 and just talk about that. A lot of times in the past, we haven't really, talked about the elephant in the room from that perspective. And we've kind of just talked about the merits of the contributing or merits of the, the proposed project and not stopped for a moment. And we've kind of got the process a little out of order. And so I'm just trying to make sure that we don't do that. So I want to pause for a second on the proposed demolition. I know it's a little bit, I know some of the team members just mentioned some of their comments was related to that. So, but again, I just want to make sure I pause on that. Any concerns at all of some of the information that Kimberly has shared? It's still the same thought about, the gym towards High Street and the underutilized space towards the rear. Is there any thoughts or comments?
I do think it is important that we don't take it lightly.
Completely.
This is, this is a precedent that we're setting, but I think, in my mind, I think, some of the material that has been added to this application in terms of understanding the history of the structure, the completeness of this as an entire thing really come into play in terms of evaluating the contributing portion of this historic structure. So I want that to be clear that, it's not something that's just taken lightly.
Appreciate that clarification, Tim. It's very helpful. I would echo that. That is.
I would add that, in its current state, we wouldn't be doing this building any favors by continuing to keep it in a place where it's not usable in the back and potentially, could, you know, be in a worse condition than than it is. I won't say that it already is. So, you know, if it's not a usable space, and that's not good for the life.
Right? Rob, I don't want to pass you by, so, and feel comfortable, remember, okay, I don't want to, okay, I just want to make sure. So just go ahead and, can we go to now the merits of the new is, but really related to design and height, because we're not really talking about design today, we're not talking about that, you know, I know that they've said that, hey, we want to get this, at least an understanding that where are we in the ballpark, and that process will continue. So they've put forth three options. I think the three options, I did, or at least wanted a clarification on item B. B is still the same overall height. It's just a slight massing change.
Right.
Where it shifted, the mass shifted, which is the mechanical mass. So it gives the appearance of a little reduction that would be to the north from that perspective, that north view. So even though the stats are the same, I'm just kind of playing off of what Dan had kind of offered to us. So any thoughts or you know, dialogue related to the three options as presented?
I mean, I'll give my 2 cents first. Might not have been very popular the last time. I think that for my personal opinion is that, you know, I prefer the massing of option A. You know, you're going for an Art Deco structure here that would have those kind of setbacks at the top. I feel like the second one, option B, just moving that back for the sake of saying, okay, now it's slightly less tall at the top, and you lose the architectural feature of a potential setback. I don't think it's worth it. And I think option C for me is like, yeah, why would I want that, right? And I think everyone else would hopefully feel similar about option C. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, agree, take option C off.
Yeah.
So option A and B are the two options that seem to rise to the top. Is there any further dialogue on options A and B?
Well, and so, I mean, part of that is looking at as the form itself, its massing, it's also its relationship to what's around it. And I think that's part of where this dialogue started, is just understanding that complete elevation of both High Street and Hubbard, and how this, you know, what is going to be a structure that's going to stand out based on its height compared to everything else, and just making sure we feel good about how it contributes to the rest of the streetscape and massing of everything else around it. I agree with option C, not feeling good. You know, between A and B, you know, if you're taking away what we know and what we've seen of the Art Deco structure, I could go either way on, you know, those height, you know, what appears in terms of those height studies, that I think I'm getting some comfort level that we're in striking distance of something that's appropriate.
Yeah, I think it was well said by Reed. Yeah, I mean, Art Deco's kind of tricky. Take something away, you lose something.
I guess my question is though on page 15, the rendering of the proposed, that dark area, you know, if we're talking about losing the image in the bottom right corner, the last page. The rendering, maybe it's page 16. It's still
It's the last match.
yeah, the rendering. So see where it's just the dark screen. If that's all that's being pushed back, I think it would be better if option B is having that black push back. So then that brings the emphasis back on the brickwork, the Art Deco look. I think that is an improvement over A, if this is showing A.
I would agree. That's a good catch. You know, I guess I envisioned it being more of an Art Deco kind of, you know, stone thing, at least on the facade. So yeah, the black with the setbacks as it is trying to hide it. If you're trying to hide it, push it back. But otherwise, I think you probably could celebrate it if you play around with it a little bit.
And so we're still, I guess, and I'm more so thinking about stats today, right? So the stats between A and B are pretty much the same. You know, the architecture and the refinement of the architecture and that process, that could be something that just kind of continues to evolve. So is that kind of a fair analysis of what I'm hearing? Okay. All right. So is there anything else like, so we've talked about one is current structure, two, well, one and two kind of hand in hand, the proposed demolition, and the third is the design and height. Is there, obviously they're going to take that step forward. Is there, with the opportunity or being able to pursue, there's probably going to be a hardship or something like that that has to be kind of curated and kind of be thinking about what are those things that are going to be needed to kind of maybe support, that in the future. I know we've talked about the utilization of the building and such, and just being able to capture that as part of that process moving forward. I don't know if it's necessary, and this is just me kind of reading the room. If it's necessary for some vote, I don't, that's got us in trouble in the past. I think, but I at least as a group, I think we wanted to make sure that we brought some of those earlier paused issues or some of those issues that were brought up later, early, to at least get a good temperature and understanding before you guys advanced. So, but I don't know if it's necessary that there's an approval or some conceptual approval need here. I don't, that's just my feeling.
So here's what I think. I think we've all done a good job of giving clear feedback of options. I think we've given a clear feedback of massing and height. These are the things that historically we've failed on when you come back and we say, oh, it's not, and you have to go back to square one. So I think the way you set this up is rather brilliant compared to how it had been set up in previous projects of this scale. So I think we've given clear feedback. I think they need to do their homework and come back. I don't see anything that would give me any cause for concern. What you proposed, I think it's the refinement piece now that's going to make the difference in this building. And I think this building has a great potential.
So when this comes back, so we come back for an action item, we're all okay with that, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, anything else did we miss anything? I just want to make sure that they had everything they needed. Okay.
You did a very good job doing that. And I think how you did that, all three of those things are the things that we have the most problems with and nailing down.
Perfect. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So application number 1454 West 3rd Avenue. This is also a conceptual review to reconstruct a one-story porch at the front of the house. The porch would measure approximately 19 feet deep by 7 feet 2 inches wide by 9 foot 6 inches tall with a flat roof. The proposed porch would have a decorative detailing and balusters on top of the flat roof. I've included the commissioner comments from the May 11th hearing. In the staff report, commissioners at the business meeting noted that for the next review, a scaled measured section drawing and an elevation drawing were required. HBO staff has located a 1962 and a 1978 photo that shows what the previous porch looked like, and it's included in the material. The porch was removed in 1982 and it's supposed to be replaced with a canopy. This is per COA number 82-4-5. A simpler, less decorative porch would be more in line with the Italian style. Based on the two previous designs, staff thinks either of those would be appropriate. Staff finds the proposed design to have a little bit too much detail. The balusters on the roof are not appropriate. The applicant has supplied examples of porches along Neal Avenue. Neal Avenue being one of the main streets in the district. The houses along the street are mainly Queen style. Their porches are much more decorative, and examples of the porches would be more appropriate at this location could be found along West 3rd Avenue. Since it's conceptual, the commissioners should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal at a future meeting. Basis for recommendation, City Code 311611, standards for alteration. I will note the applicant did submit a drawing with some measurements this morning, but it's too late for me to get that into the materials.
Makes sense. Can you, get you sworn in, sir? Can you state your name?
Yeah,
Get you sworn in?
Kyle Lutton with the right way.
Perfect. Do you get agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely, yes.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. All right, go ahead. Turn it over to you.
Oh, okay. Prepared for that. So yeah, with the homeowner Stacy Rayvick, so she wants to do build a porch. There's nothing there right now. So we just want to get the conceptual review approved by you guys so that we can go ahead and move forward with architectural drawings and all that. I do apologize, like Kimberly mentioned, sent over the actual measurements of the width and the depth a little today, which was a little too late, but, yeah, anyway.
Okay.
So,
No problem.
yeah, and the applicant did say if the balusters on the top of the roof is too much, she's fine getting rid of them. She will like them, so.
Okay. Thank you, sir. That's absolutely. Just open up to any feedback, just positive feedback to help the application.
Well, I love that picture. Did that thing wrap all the way around? Do we have a,
Which picture?
I guess that was
I think it was
the first one.
First one.
You really can't see if it
I
just
know,
goes
like-
around the corner or does it? Yeah,
No, that picture's actually of the neighboring house, and the owner at the last meeting had said that there was a picture that you could see her porch, you know.
You just can't tell where it ends.
No,
right.
I want the next inch. of
And
that.
then, but that car also, you can't even get a sense of depth either, so.
It does look like there's another, it helps when it's that size.
Given the other houses on the street that are,
Yeah, you get,
I don't think it can.
Now, looking at flashing detail,
flashing.
I think it
just
ends like right there, but it's that nice little corner detail that would be nice to see again, which helps with, because it looks again like there's a column here, just like there is a column there.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, regardless, it clearly extends beyond the front facade. of the
Yeah,
house,
probably
which I
2
think
feet or
is-
so.
I think it's kind of an interesting development.
Locks it in a little bit, kind of locks it in place.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that, I don't know, what we were challenged with too, if you remember, is kind of looking at, there's a seat wall condition and that seat wall condition is higher. I couldn't tell in that photograph, it doesn't look like that seat wall condition exists.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
It's flush all around, so we're
I
flush.
mean, what we were really responding to was that balustrade above and sort of the fussiness of it
Sure.
versus,
Yep.
more
This
simplistic.
confirms that it's way too
Yeah.
messy. It's, the staff recommendation hit it right on the head, yes, it responds to other things in the neighborhood, but that's not the same style house. So this was a simpler house. But I think you could get more of that detail by pulling it out just a little bit further and wrapping the corner. Get that column back, and it does look like it originally had some brackets and things, which provides a nice detail that's appropriate to its style.
Challenge I would note is it looks like the stairs have moved from that picture. So
It does look a little different. Do you have any pictures?
like the stairs are pretty much flush with the face of the house in the rendering versus being with the porch out.
Is that the idea that the stairs would remain?
Yeah, the stairs are gonna remain, literally, yeah, and that's what, it does look a little different in that photo than it actually looks in real life.
At least then your stairs are covered.
It just looks kind of weird to have stairs under.
Yeah, it does. It makes me think more of that has been rebuilt.
Yeah. Especially if that wall is no longer at the same elevation, something's changed there.
really can't see that. It's
so
it's
tough.
so far back.
Yes. Photos. Front, no.
I'm trying to remember.
Okay.
My memory
So we
is.
just have random, okay.
I mean, you can see it in the second photo, which is the old porch with the triangular. You can see where the stairs are there, which is different than,
Where the stairs are now.
but no, I think that's where they are now. I think that's different than the first picture.
Right, yeah, I wish I had a photo like the last month of it.
Yeah, it kind of does look like those, the one on the left with the red around it, it looks like those stairs have been pulled.
Yeah.
Probably in the porch.
The second one is current or similar to the current condition.
Yep.
But I mean, I think the direction they're going in, taking them down the street.
That'll help a lot. Ideally, it would be pulled back out to the route.
And I can't remember, did we say, I think we did say this. You brought up I think we have the engaged column on the back part of the bay. I'm wondering if it's an engaged column to the left. But I don't know how well that works on, you know what I mean?
That's
In the
what-
back piece, it looks good.
Yeah.
It looks good when it's engaged in the back, but when you see it this way to the front of the facade, I'm not so sure how effective that is.
Because it's not typical for that style.
Yep.
You know, what's interesting is if you look at that rendering, that's if you did kind of take this and tug it a little bit towards the street, that column would be back closer to the end of the seat wall. And you may, well, even without putting the engaged column, you still may be able to get that little bit of eyebrow that kind of wraps the brick a little bit. So,
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, they're thoughts.
Okay.
It also looks like there was originally another column that span going back. It looks like there were 3. Which would make sense, because that's a fairly long span.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, there's gonna be 3. That was part of the revision I sent.
Oh, perfect.
Too late. Too late, yeah. Yeah, so we'd be adding a column there in the middle, and yeah, we eliminated that one that was tucked right against the house.
Yeah.
There might be 4 there. Doesn't seem right.
I think it's a trick of the eye with this.
That's what I was.
All right, does that?
Anything else?
So get these newer ones to you, yeah. So if we did 3 columns to the right there, well, you know, the main span there. So that's it's actually just under 19-foot span. Would that be okay, you guys think, or? It's not shown, so you can't really comment on it.
No, I don't think there's a concern with the number of columns.
No, I just think it has to register as all those columns, even the engaged one, they have to be equal.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't degree down that middle one. It has to read like the other ones.
Okay. I think getting rid of the balustrades on top.
Yeah, it seems
Okay.
good. So, yep.
Anything else?
And then, yeah, I think further evolution of seat wall elements. Taking some cues from the original that's flush with the porch. I'm not convinced that it needs to be flush, but what that material is, what that looks like. And, you know,
It's just
floor to
odd
height,
condition.
yeah, it feels off right now.
And if there's any possibility of extending it towards the street, so then it can wrap a corner and you can add that column,
Okay.
yeah, that would resolve that issue, and take it one step closer to what it was historically.
Okay, cool. So just kind of try to take it back to what it was. Okay. Perfect.
Have you ever thought about redoing the steps?
It's up to them. Just try to do what they want to do.
No, just thinking if
Yeah.
all of us.
Redo the steps.
Yeah, right.
Well, the thing is if the odd thing is creating the challenge that the homeowner doesn't like, you resolve and get rid of the odd thing. And so that's all. And so,
Yeah, no, we always want to do the right thing.
you know,
So if we
so
can-
that's all. Right, so if you can resolve the seat kind of condition, that may help address being able to clean up something. So I think the homeowner last time was here and she kind of talked through some of those things and she was very engaged and knew what she kind of wanted. And so if there's some challenge in that process,
Yeah.
wouldn't throw out being able to, hey, should we evaluate the base condition as
Okay.
part of this?
Okay.
So, very helpful. Anything else? Anything else? sir?
Not for me.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You guys have been helpful. Thank you so much.
Likewise, appreciate it.
are going to circle back to number 12 because there is nobody in the audience.
A motion
Yeah, do we want to offer any comments or feedback really quick? I would like, this is, I think, the second time this one has been conceptual, so if there's a possibility that the next time we see that it could be an action item. I know we've got some questions on materials that I can hopefully work with through with the applicant or details.
And really the details of the law, so sort of what we had talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't in on this, but the thing that I think is I think one of the things is the ugly wart is that dormer on top that I think they really need to address.
No.
I mean, they're not doing anything with it. If you look at the,
Yeah, maybe that's because
Well, the application is for the board.
Porch and wasn't for the dormer at all.
well, but sometimes, so again, history tells us, sometimes when they're asking for a lot, we also will add something that will really complete the facade. And I think if anything looks odd to me is that dormer.
When it goes to the dormer.
I got lessons, streaming lessons.
Do you know what I mean?
There's a couple items that I noticed that hadn't been approved that I'm wrapping into the application, so we
You know.
can get them.
Because quite frankly, if they would do that and address that dormer, I think we couldn't ask for something to be brought back better than its condition right now. And I don't think that that's asking a lot to address that.
Are the doors being, new in terms of, right now the transoms are covered and is that,
That was something that should probably be discussed, especially the second
I'm just
floor
curious.
doesn't have the doors at the moment, so the original condition probably would have had those doors, so.
Yeah, I wish they would put those dormers back. I think that's
Wait,
important.
transom.
Transom, I'm sorry. Well, no, I think, no. The dormer we have to address, and it would be nice, it would be very nice, almost transom. Yeah.
And then we talked about at the business meeting that, if
The
they
opening.
have a product
I
listing,
feel like it's that must have.
but
Yeah.
if they would be helpful to get, this shouldn't be a substitute to the products because some of the product listing, if they go for action for a vote and they come back in,
So you're saying the visuals are helpful?
I think so. I think it's gonna help them too, because there's some things on here like the decking boards instead of, the size of them are decking boards versus the tongue and groove. So there's just items here that may not necessarily be appropriate.
They are replacing the second floor doors and that masonry opening already is there. So yes, they need to have transom.
Yeah.
It's one thing, if they would have to cut open the masonry again because, but it's already
there.
their size.
So since we're here and the first floor doors have the same openings, so, do we need to say something that they need to think about those? Or since they're not replacing those, we can leave those be for the time being?
Say if those get replaced, they have to have transoms.
Okay.
And it's just little details, so we see this little rendition. And I think the things we have to watch out for, so if you look at the picture, that could very easily represent the porch. And they're not gonna do anything with the porch, the first floor porch, and the boards will run that way versus replacing new.
Mhm.
And then we have that corner condition of all those side pieces, and I don't kind of see any kind of finished piece.
Yeah.
So I think there's just a lot of detail that we have to.
So I think that kind of goes to is when they make that next step, we talked about, I think I inadvertently had mentioned the section cut through it and getting some of those details clarified. And then Tim kind of said, hey, Sean, it's just a conceptual. And I was like, oh, that's right. So, but if they do, just based upon them not being present, that would be expected if they're asking for a vote. So,
Yeah.
good, very helpful.
So thank you all.
But, well, just back to back to the dormer, in terms of so, there's the old photo, which probably also is it the scale of it? Is it the fact that it's there at all?
The windows are
Because,
wrong.
yeah, I mean, they're wrong now, but they were also wrong in the old photo too, so. There.
So I would see just like a shortened two double hungs.
Yeah.
Spaced.
Okay.
And trimmed correctly. I think it would be much better.
That was ridiculous with this one.
As a, just as a traditional dorm.
Feel better in the attic too.
Yeah, it would.
All right, so can I have a motion to continue in the absence of the applicant? Or well, actually, it's conceptual, so never mind.
No, that's
I'm
right.
like,
That's
trying to
right.
do this.
We are. That's great. Thank you.
So, that means we have nothing left to discuss, with the exception of,
Look at that timing.
I know, it's
Perfect.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to note, I'm not sure if Commissioner Sewell will be at the last business meeting. His term is over June 30th.
And he's not coming back.
No, he has decided not to due to the schedule, which I was hoping he would be here. So, I could thank him in person again for serving with us. Hopefully that's-
Darn it.
Is that quick?
Because I'm sorry I missed the last one, but I have enjoyed tonight. I think our conversations are good. I just think we are past makeup because we haven't been consistent with things. It's gotten us in a lot of problems. So if it's a big project or it's a little project, we have to be consistent about how we attack and look and review so we don't get ourselves into trouble or conflicts. And I think the conversation is good tonight. I think that worked well together, but it's big projects have really been for us.
Yes.
Because we've made mistakes setting up the foundation of how we go about our argument, how we go about our critique, and this felt really good tonight. Really good.
I'm glad.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Well,
I'm motioning to adjourn.
Second.
Done.
Done.